Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's a live discussion on House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 5, Regent. Joined here by the usual but very special guests. First joining me, my sister Alyssa Targaryen. Thanks so much for joining.
Hello. I always wanted to use the screen name Alyssa Targaryen if the actual Alyssa Targaryen from the book ever appeared in the show, because there actually is an Alyssa Targaryen in lore. In the Fire and Blood book, she is Daemon and Viserys' mom. She didn't appear in the best of circumstances for me to now have that as my username, but I just want to say I've never had sex with my son, and Alyssa Targaryen has never had sex with her son either. Daemon's just a weirdo. He's just having visions about having sex with his mother. He's just a creep and a weirdo. It's nothing to do with me or Alyssa Targaryen. We're distancing ourselves from that. But I had to use that as my screen name because that's my namesake, Alyssa Targaryen.
And also join us, always happy to have Mr. Phil Frayed. Thanks so much for joining, Darrin.
Yeah, excited about tonight. It's great. You can see me in real time, realizing a whole thing of who somebody was and not who I thought it was. So, yeah, that'll add to that conversation later. But yeah,
That was
excited to
Daemon's
get in tonight, especially after last week seeing the payoff, and there was some real interesting stuff done with this episode. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and I'm of course half the realm because I know that Damon was responsible for Jairus' death, so I'm half the realm. Anyway, so yeah, there we go. So ready to start the discussion, but I will say ahead of time that like we did last week, after we finish talking about episode 5, Darren's gonna go ahead and leave so me and Alyssa can talk some book spoilers. So anyone else who hadn't read the books can also leave at that point, but I will give proper warnings. But that's not going to be for a while because we are going to get full into episode 5 first. So let's start with episode 5 overall thoughts. I said pretty much in my review that this was maybe my least favorite episode of the season. Not to saying it's a bad episode by any way, shape, or form, because it's been an amazing season. It's just mostly been a lot of character beats, and there wasn't anything like really major happening. I mean, there was a couple fucked up things, interesting things for sure. I was never bored throughout the episode, or maybe for like 30 seconds, but you're not really. And so it was a solid episode, but nothing that really it's one of those necessary cogs in the machine that we need. But anyway, I'll start with Alyssa. Your thoughts on this episode?
Very similar. I also thought this was my least favorite episode of the season. Not that it's bad, and I did find value in it. There were some interesting moments, some particular character beats that we'll get into as we get into this discussion. I continue to appreciate how they show the perspective of the small folk, which they're doing more and more of, and you don't get that in the book. So I appreciate that. We're finally getting a little bit of movement forward with Damon's storyline. At least he's actually leaving Harrenhal and doing things instead of just having visions the whole time. I mean, the visions that he do have are very weird, but at least he's moving out in the world and doing other things. And also, we get clarification that he is definitely trying to get the throne for himself, which had been implied. You could kind of construe that, but it had never been flat out said until this week. So that's moving forward. That's progress. That's good. But at the same time, I do feel like the show is starting to spin in its wheels a little bit. It may have a lot to do with, again, the fact that I am familiar with the source material and it's kind of behind where I thought it would be at this point in the season. It's why I actually requested the spoiler section with Mark so that we could get into some of the pacing and when we think beats from the book are going to happen in the show, because things are happening more slowly than I anticipated. Like for example, we get at the very end of this episode, Jace and Rhaenyra have this idea. Hey, what if we tried to get um, people with Targaryen blood who aren't pure Targaryens to see if they can ride a dragon? So like bastards or people who've married into other houses. Those in the book are known as dragon seeds. Don't know if they use that term, but they came up with this idea at the end of episode 5. I was thinking that we'd be well into that by episode 5. So when I look at what they're doing in its place, I think there's a lot of. It's not that the stuff they're doing isn't interesting, but I do feel like there's a lot of wheel spinning happening, and I do want them to maybe let's just pick it up just a little bit, pick up the pace a little bit more. I feel like we didn't need to do that much aftermath of Rook's Rest. I think there was maybe a little bit more than we needed. So just a touch, pick up the pace a little bit. But I still find the season overall to be really good. So we'll see how it goes moving forward.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to get me to disagree that the pace could have been moving a little bit quicker. Personally, for a while, that's the one thing that's kind of frustrated me with a lot of the more recent episodes. Is like, I mean, yes, last week was cool and great and all of that, but I mean, as a whole, I felt that there's been a lot of like, let's get into this little minutia and thinking and what's happening, and it's just I'm not always interested in that kind of story, and yet I also know that there are people out there that do like that. So I'm not sure entirely who the show is attempting to appeal for or just kind of get as many people under their umbrella as possible. And I will certainly agree that most of this episode, while there was some cool stuff within it, I was kind of like almost half tuning out because of those little extra bits and things that, while interesting unto themselves, just seemed to slow everything down until a particular moment where I finally went, oh, now this could be some interesting stuff right here. So considering where you're saying you wish you were already well into the Dragon Seed movement, I couldn't agree with you more. And that is the bit where I'm like, okay, now you're talking about, a ragtag group of rebels, get the group of nerds together and people from all sorts of different sources and put them together. I mean, that's always my kind of stuff. So this is where I'm hoping that things are really going to turn forward. So I'm kind of excited that you're like, yeah, we should have been like well past into this at this point.
Yeah, I think we did our first spoiler discussion in episode 2, Darren, because you weren't here, and I said then that I expected the Dragon Seeds to start happening in episode 3. That was a bit off.
Well, I knew it wasn't
so hopeful.
I knew it wasn't going to happen that early. But Brandon has mentioned my predictions might not come to pass. Well, at least there are quite a few of them will not, but I still have a shot on some of them. But one of my predictions at the beginning of the year is that Rhaenys' death would happen at the end of episode 3. So they are going a little bit more slowly than but I did not anticipate episode 3 to be all about Rhaenyra going off to Alicent. Like, that was not a thing that I knew was going to happen. So they're going a little bit more slowly than I thought they would, and at this point in the season, it's starting to catch up with me a little bit. Now I'm kind of like, come on, let's move it forward a little bit.
Now, actually, let me know if I'm wrong with this memory that I'm having but I felt that one of the things that I think makes everything feel a little disjointed and spread out and all that is going by scenes of just how many jump arounds and places and different characters that we go through. And if I remember, not just to compare things to Game of Thrones, but it's a Game of Thrones show, there was a lot more of like chunks of time spent in particular areas in particular stories, and they would almost move like this story in episode 2 and then this person's story in episode 3, and then we're way over here with these people in episode 4. Or am I just misremembering because
No, I think a lot of episodes were that way. And not every episode. I think there were some episodes like this where they would go back and forth between places. But most of them, since the storylines were so separate, they would be like, okay, we're going to be in Winterfell or the North for 20 minutes. We'll explore all the characters up there. Okay, now we're going to King's Landing for 20 minutes. And then we're going to like Essos for 20 minutes. Sometimes they do it that way, but other times they would like go back and forth like this.
Yeah, because I think the jumping all over the place, it's like, okay, we got to get a little bit of everybody's story together. It's like, well, man, that's a lot of people.
But season 2 is feeling a lot more like Game of Thrones in that way. Because season 1, the story was just mostly staying in one location and going super fast. Where here we're going at the slow Game of Thrones pace and also jumping to all these different locations like Game of Thrones did. So it feels more like Game of Thrones, I feel.
Right. Okay.
But anyway, so starting with the episode with Cole parading the dragon's head through King's Landing, which didn't go quite as he thought it would. They had the guy, I remember seeing this from the trailer for this episode, the guy yelling, "Behold the traitor dragon Melee slain by King Aegon!" I'm like, and not exactly slain by King Aegon. Obviously, it's a propaganda machine, but with Otto not there, we see that Cole is not so good at doing the propaganda because instead of listening, the response he expected is like, why are they acting like we lost? And Quain's like, oh, so did we win? You gonna call that a victory, are you? and people had apparently the opposite reaction to think this is a bad omen. Like, what the fuck? These dragons are supposed to be invincible, and now they're parading their head around. And it was interesting. You got that one kid who said that, random guy who said that to Hugh, and he was like, it's not magic, it's just meat. So yeah. Anyway, thoughts on this scene? We'll start with you, Darren.
Yeah, the somberness of that parade of victory was also, I think, didn't really convey the idea that they wanted. But yeah, it was it's funny, you can immediately see the mistake, and like you said, the missing of someone like Hightower that actually has a little bit of experience and knowledge of people and their responses is the line of Targaryens, dragons ruling over the realm, and now you're like, yep, and here's a dead one. Ha ha. Especially in the midst of this kind of a battle for the throne. So it's, yeah, it seemed like such an obvious bad choice kind of watching it. And I appreciate that we start to see this. And this is, in a lot of ways, the episode that shows cause and effect and the consequences of those choices, and how it can get away from you or kind of go into play. Usually, I think for most of this episode, it's how it goes the other way and not the way that you want it. So, yeah, just some bad choices there by Christian Cole. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the last one.
Yeah, no, as soon as Aegon made Christian Cole the hand, I said immediately, well, that was a dumb decision. That, I mean, if you're going to get rid of Otto, okay. I mean, as much as I hate Otto, he probably was the best choice because he is good at this kind of thing. But as soon as that happened, I was like, yeah, he's gonna not be a good hand. Now he's a good military strategist. The plan to have Aemon hide and come out and to lure Dragon was a good plan. So I don't fault him for that. But then everything beyond like the military planning, he's not going to be so great. And I think I agree with you, Darren. I believe we will see more bad decisions by Mr. Kristen Cole here.
And also watching this parade, we see on high Alicent standing next to Aemon. They don't say anything to each other, but Alicent sort of looks over and happens to see that Valyrian steel dagger that Aegon had, and now he has it. So I think this is when she kind of suspects something kind of went amiss, something foul play, and so goes to Kristen Cole, and he's like just ignoring her and like, what? I don't care, whatever, and just saying like, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. It's fine. It was just in battle. I have no clue. So he's flat out lying to her. He knows goddamn well what happened, and that Aemon had his sword out over, Aegon's falling body. But also, they go to Aegon, who is, in fact, still alive, chucking along. And she's really concerned about him. And I think we're getting some of that guilt we were talking about that she might be feeling over what happened to him. And Aemon comes in and just looks at him and is like, someone's going to have to roll in his stead. And then so I think, Allison's getting a little bit fishy with Aemon. So, Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, and I love that scene where she just looks at him, and there's no lines, but you can just tell by the look that she gives him that she is definitely suspecting something. Like I think she knows enough about him to know that, like I said last week, he's not a good dude. I think even his own mother knows that, and she sees him with that dagger, and she immediately suspects it. And then Kristen Cole, like being all suspicious about it, like doesn't do anything. I mean, that probably just enhanced her her suspicions that Aemon was involved in some way, and Kristen Cole probably just made it worse. Where I'm like, oh no, it's fine, nothing happened. No, he said something like, "Who's this? I can't say. I don't know." And it was so obvious that he was hiding something. He's also not a good liar either. He's just he's so bad at so many things. And then as for the bedside scene, I was wondering if how much of it is worry for her son, or if she's feeling guilt, or how much of it is holy shit, Aemon is going to take his place. I think that when Aemon says someone is going to have to rule in his stead, I don't know if that's the first time she thought of that, or she was already thinking like, this is not good because now Aemon might end up ruling in his place. And of course, we'll talk about the the Green Council scene when we get there. But I think that already she's really concerned about that. So I don't know how much. I don't know how much of what else is going on. If there are a little bit of this is my son, and I feel really bad. I'm sure there's a little bit of that happening. I don't know if there is any guilt, honestly, but certainly she's going to be concerned about Aemon taking the reins, taking the Iron Throne.
If anything, Aemon is unapologetic. He doesn't. He's not going to admit anything necessarily, but he doesn't mind looking like he's got the cat with the canary in his mouth, as he's spitting out feathers and holding them up slightly in front of himself. This is great because we are starting to see everything falling apart for Alicent as it continues to do so through this episode. And if I can remember correctly, I think didn't Cole kind of deflect about the battlefield and tell about people burnt to death? Was it in this scene right here where he was talking about the damage, the people who were done and armor melted?
Was that the other scene that he talks to her later, or was that this one? Because there's another one after the Green Council meeting where she confronts him.
Yeah,
you remember?
I can't remember because I've got it in their talk here in my notes, and so I couldn't remember. Was that one? That one just seemed to go very quickly, whereas this one at least seemed to have like a little moment. But yeah. Everyone is falling to Aemon, and that's the other thing that we see repeated throughout this episode is the danger of Vhagar. Yeah, Aemon's bad enough, but he's on top of this badass nuclear bomb that can just steer itself to your place. And we're even seeing with here of like, well, yeah, he's crazy, but he knows what to do, and I'm not going to fight and argue with him because I probably wouldn't win that fight. And it's funny just to sort of see all of that cave around and Alicent just lose her grip. And we get to see this right now. And I think that that's part of what she's seeing with Aegon. At least him, she might have a voice in some way. With Aemon, I think she knows exactly what would happen.
I don't know, and I think it's probably more the fact that she's just doesn't trust Aemon after killing Lucerys, and now she suspects him of Aegon's injuries, and so just I think those are the reasons why she doesn't really want him in charge.
Why? Because he expressed absolutely no remorse over his brother, or care, or concern, or like he'd been like, "Oh, that looks bad." Anyway, what's in charge next?
And I think she started suspecting him as soon as she saw that dagger. I think as soon as she saw the dagger, she was like,
yeah, and of course, all Aemon had to do was like, well, if he's not dead, he'll probably die on the way back here, right? Because he didn't try to expedite any of that movement. It's not like he put Aegon's body on his dragon on Vhagar and flew back to King's Landing. Save my brother! No.
all right, so then we go over to Dragonstone, the Black Council, to see Sir Alfred. That's that dude's name who's always a dick, and he's being a dick again. No surprise. And this time he's just blatantly sexist, just being like, when she confronts him, finally, she's like, do you not trust me? And he was like, well, quite frankly, I think you're great. You're a smart mind, and I trust you the rule, but you're a woman, so you shouldn't be in charge for war. And I like her response was, we've both, there's been peace for like 60 years. None of us has been in war, and you're no more qualified than I am, which is good. I like that. But then they're arguing more because she's talking about supporting the other houses, sending them resources, which is good. But then we have the Kingsguard guy, can't remember his name, but his father just died. He died in the previous episode.
Sir Darklyn.
Darklyn.
Yeah, I don't remember his first name, but it's Darklyn.
Darklyn, yeah. Because his family's at Duskendale, and his father died, and so he's like really upset and is like, you need to answer this. You need to send dragons, and the other people like, yeah, Vhagar is weak now. It's the perfect time to strike. And she's like, okay, well, I will go with my dragon. They're like, no, you can't go. You're the queen. And she's like, well, what would you have me do? Like, there's just my son and Bella. And their dragons are smaller, and they didn't have an answer to that. So basically, I feel like they're just like striking out of anger, like, oh, attack. And she's like, okay, well, this is how we're gonna do it. Like, no, not like that. And then like, how? Well, I don't know. So it doesn't seem like they're actually any helpful. Her council's pretty freaking useless. All they do is whine. And so, Darrin, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, men talking around her is how I put it down in my notes. And it's nice because we do see this kind of repeated later on in a way. But that same moment where it's just all around and what we can do. And again, they're constantly putting her in her place, what she can do and not do. And the fact that she has the largest dragon at that point, or, certainly quicker than Vhagar, but she's never really learned battle. We find this later on as well, as she hasn't been given that. She was given a cup and told to keep an eye on things and watch, but never really this part of ruling. And it's just annoying because they don't really have any better discussions, and they can't counter the realities of what she can offer. But she is also the queen, and jumping into battle is probably not the best thing, especially considering what just happened with Aegon and a leader rushing into battle unprepared.
I want to say I was curious how no one pointed out that because she wanted to go last time, and if she did, she would be dead. And so, yeah. Instead of Rhaenys. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think they are kind of focusing on the exclusion of her more than kind of anything else, and that may make a little bit of the choices of where they focus. But the fact that, yes, she does pose that, yeah, you're right, we should do this stuff, but who is going to do it? Because we don't have the people that are placed that we can either risk or that, are dangerous enough, are large enough dragons, old enough dragons in order to do anything. And yeah, so you're right. They are kind of an annoying small council because they do just want to fight and strike out, but they don't really have any substantial ideas, and they can't agree, even though they keep saying that she's in charge. They don't listen to her. And, again, one of those repeating themes to this episode.
Yeah, I have to admit, the Black Council is one of the things where I really feel like we're spinning wheels. Like, I'm getting so tired of this, and it does look like with her sending away Sir Alfred Broom at the end of this episode, that we may be getting somewhere. But I'm like, come on, Corliss, just get the fuck in there. Do you have to take an entire episode to decide whether you're going to be the hand or not, and how long do you have to look at the hand emblem and have your granddaughter give you a speech, which I will get to that, and I did actually really like her speech, but it's like, come on, just get in there, Corliss, already. Take care of this, because I'm just so tired of these like old white guys who don't know what they're doing, but they don't know what they're doing, but they do like to tell Rhaenyra what not to do. Like they like telling Rhaenyra she's wrong. They like talking around her, as Darrin said, and I actually think that Rhaenyra used that same language when she's talking to Mycera later, that they're just talking around me all the time.
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, I'm just so over this. So but it does look like we're seeing the light at the end of this tunnel, where we can finally maybe make the Black Council a little bit more interesting once we bring Corliss in there. So Sir Alfred is being sent off, at least for a little bit. I don't know what's going to happen to him, and I mean that sincerely, because I don't think this happened in the book. So I don't know what's going to happen to him in Harrenhal. Maybe he doesn't come back. I don't know. Daemon does like chopping people's heads off, so who knows? Or maybe he just goes over to Team Daemon and wants him to be king because he's a man. So who knows what's going to happen? But I think the Black Council. Hopefully, we can just. I'm really getting tired of this kind of wheel spinning that's happening there. So hopefully, we're going to move beyond that.
All right. So then we get Jace going to Bella and talking about how, like, hey, fuck this shit. I'm out of here. I need to do something. I'm sick of being locked up in here. I'm treated like a child. And while you get to go out on your dragon and patrol, and she's coddling me. I like getting the scene between the two of them, because I think the two of them need both these characters. I like when they get more screen time, and I like them together. It's a relationship that the books pretty much didn't develop at all. So I do love seeing them together, and how he's like, I'm going to Harrenhal to convince Daemon to do this. And she's like, you're not going to be able to convince him to do anything. He's going to do whatever the hell he wants. So then that like he came up with an even better idea, which in fact was a very good idea that we'll touch on later. He decides to go to the twins instead to talk to the Freys, but he's basically does the whole typical teenage boy, I'm just gonna sneak out late at night and don't tell mom until the next day, and so kind of defies his mother in that manner, but does it in a way to accomplish some good. So anyway, Alyssa, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, typical teenage boy sneaking out in the middle of the night to go do diplomacy
on his dragon, yeah.
To go on a diplomatic mission, those teenage boys. But yeah, and we'll get into that scene later. I honestly don't have much to say about this particular scene. I do have things to say about Jace, but I think it's kind of more appropriate to talk about them when we get into some of his other scenes. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything. There's not much in this scene. It's just him saying, "I'm fucking my mom. I'm tired of being in here. I'm going off on my own." And yeah, I don't really have anything more to add to it. I'll talk more about Jace in some of his other scenes. I think he's becoming a pretty solid character, but we'll get into that.
Oh, come on. Teenage Diplomacy. Wasn't that a big hit by Twisted Sister or something back in 86? I don't know. I have to think about that. No. Yeah, this is, again, it is. It's just one of those simple little scenes. You're right. I like them together. Come on. These two, they're the future of the realm, right? We really got to get invested in their story. I do like them, actually. They're kind of fun characters. I don't know how long anybody's going to last the show, so I can't really connect too much with them. But yeah, it's basically the whiny, mom won't let me do what I want to do. Nobody trusts me. I'm going to run off and do, like you said, teenage secret diplomacy with my dragon. I mean, look, everybody's got goals. Everybody's got goals in life. So at least he's making choices. And I was kind of excited. I'm like, oh, okay, what does this generation of the phrase look like? So, hey, there wasn't any pie, so that was good at least.
Or marriage proposals. That's, you got to avoid those. But anyway, so we have a next scene with Damon in the Riverlands with the Blackwood dude who wants to bring because he promised in order to get their support to bring the Brackens to heel or wipe them out. And so he does basically the same tactic that Kristen Cole did with Duskendale in the previous episode, that look, join us or die. And the Brackens are just like, no, pass. I'll just die instead. And of course, because he hates the Blackwoods, I'd rather die than be the Blackwood. He's like taunting him about his father's head going stale or something on the ride home, getting worms or whatever. But I thought this was really interesting. Has that shot is what I chose for the thumbnail for this video of the Bracken dude just walking away. You can see how massive Damon's dragon is behind him, and he just doesn't give a shit. He doesn't show any fear or anything. So I can kind of get Damon's perspective on, well, actually, that's someone I'm not just gonna kill these people because I came here to get people on my side, and these people are hard asses. Not even scared. My dragon was right in his face. I could have blown him to bits, and he didn't give a shit. But Damon, of course, is not the I guess not the most diplomatic. Something I want to get into later. But he, goes to the Blackwood guys. There's other, being like a mafia boss, sort of. There's other ways to persuade people to do what you want. And so we see later on, maybe not the smartest strategy. So Alyssa, we'll start with you for this one.
Yeah. Yeah, Damon is definitely not the smartest. I mean, I honestly think, at that point, it probably would have been better for him to just fry the Brackens, just burn them all, because I think the Blackwood guy, I believe, brought up the point of something like, well, how loyal do you think that these people are going to be to you when they're fighting under duress? Which is also a good point. Like, I mean, I get why. I get his rationale. Oh, these are badasses. I would love to have them on my side. But I think there's a lot you would have to do to get them on your side. And then can you trust them once you're... you should have just burned them. Which is interesting because Damon usually does he does default to violence, usually. And the one time that he doesn't, probably should have, honestly. Because I don't think those guys we're going to be any use to him. And then, as you alluded to, Mark, we'll see later in the episode that this has unintended consequences that is making things a lot worse for him. So he really should have just burned them. Honestly, that would have gotten the Blackwoods. That would have gotten all the Blackwoods strongly on his side. Maybe the Blackwoods could have then convinced other people, and things could have gone a lot better. Honestly, so yeah, not the best decision by Damon.
Look, the Riverlands is a poor area. The Brackens have 0 fucks to give. Okay? So that's just evident of their badassery because they have none to give. They're too poor. No, this was kind of a funny and weird scene in that sense because, this guy's like, go ahead, take us out. We don't care. That's how strong your hatred. Yeah, the fact that he's taunting him about his maggot-filled brother's head. Did it get to you in time, or father's? I mean, yeah. And the fact that Damon's right. He can't just kill them because he needs them. And the acknowledgement that, like, wow, they stared down a dragon and didn't care. Those are the kind of badasses I actually need. Now, I would almost have thought that Damon would have then just killed the Blackwood, delivered him to the Bracken, and go, all right, can we call this settled, and now can we get together? You're right. This was definitely one of those where whatever choice he made, the violence would at least have been honest and more direct and over with quickly. And I have to admit, when he does suggest that there are other ways to get someone to do it, the choices that were made were not what I thought that he was implying, but of course it is because it's Damon. So yeah, I guess I was thinking a little more convincing and not torturing. But you know, everybody's got their style.
I picked up on that immediately, especially when he said to him, "If you take my meaning," I'm like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
he's talking about like kidnapping wives and sons."
Yeah, exactly. You know
Kidnapping. Kidnapping, sure, not killing. Again, you know. Well, again, we will talk to it when we find out the effects of all of these things, which Damon seems very intent on plowing as fast and head forward as possible into.
Right. So then we go over to the Veil. The Veil, I don't think we haven't seen this on the show yet. I believe the Erie didn't get to see the sky sails this time, maybe next time. But we get Raina, who's gone there, and we meet Lady Jane, who's played by the actress who played Mother on Raised by Wolves. Because then we have Father playing Alan. Now we have Mother playing this act, Lady Jane. But anyway, so she's upset because she's like, well, I asked for a dragon, and like, well, we gave you two. I'm like, yeah, but they're like, they just came out of the egg. These are no use to me. Well, you didn't specify the age, which is technically true, but obviously she's kind of dicking around, and it seems like Lady Jane is quite upset about it. And her response to that was just like, you know, I'm responsible for your well-being and your feeding and everything, so maybe you don't want to be such a dick to me. But I do like when Lady Jane said, I don't like feeling powerless, and Raina's response is, neither do I, because she didn't want to go there. She's still pissed off she was charted around there. So I do wonder how that relationship is going to develop. Alyssa, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I hope that we see more Lady Jane. And you know, there's well, in the book, we never know really what she says to Jace. We don't actually get to see Jace go to see her. He just mentions it off screen. But there were different versions from the different sources of some of the things she said, and one of them thought that she was asking, you know, she said that she would help Jace if he could make her climax with his tongue, and then another person said that no, that's definitely not true because she's totally a lesbian, and so I kind of was hoping the show would lean into that a little bit, like let's have a queer character in Game of Thrones. But I wonder how much of a part this character really is going to play in the show. But and I do love the actress. And I don't think I would have recognized that it was Mother from Raised by Wolves if Mark, you hadn't pointed it out to me previously that she was going to be playing Lady Jane. So I do like this actress. I hope that we get to see more of her, and I do want to see like, where are we going with this storyline? We have Raina was sent off to the Vale. She only gets this one scene, I believe, in this episode. What's the point of this? What's going to happen here? So this is another one that's like, okay, let's move along a little bit. But I hope whatever it is involves more Lady Jane, because I like this character and I like this actress. But I suppose. Oh, and another thing that I don't think she said in the show. was that all the men like in the Vale object to her being a woman in charge. That's why she would support Rhaenyra, because they're both women in charge. And I think she said in the book, like, so and so tried to overthrow me. He's the Sky Cell right now. So I hope to see that. I do hope we get to see the Sky Cell. I don't know if we're gonna get the Moon Door, but at least the Sky Cell. Like, let's. I love me some Vale. Let's get a little bit more of this moving forward, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm always cautious of the crazy queens in Cloud City here, but I'm I am kind of hopeful because I did like the little back and forth that they had there with because you can make sense. It's like, look, yeah, I'll give you the men because we can defend this place. There's only one way up. You get to see the whole entryway. It's like the only thing that we're welcome to is open to is anything from the sky. And since they have dragons, this would be a perfect exchange. I need someone to protect us while I send you the men that would do that job otherwise. So to be technicalityed by, well, they're technically dragons. I mean, they can even fly around your heads a little bit, So you can definitely understand her being upset. But I am hoping that there is kind of a little connection to be made here simply because we got that, I'm not one that likes to be told what to do or whatever. And you have the reply, on the other side, which I thought could almost come across as a little catty, a little snidey, a little dig back. But it seemed more honest, and that seemed how Lady J received it, to the point where it was like, this will be your room. Dinner's at 6. I could expect you then, right? There seemed to be that opening. So the fact that that a lot of this story is dealing around, strong female leaders and the respect or lack of respect, the power or lack of power that they actually carry. It's interesting to see that in this little part of the woods, Westeros woods, where it seems to be a little bit more accepted than maybe a little further south.
Indeed. All right, so then we go with Massaria talking to Rhaenyra. So Rhaenyra seems to go to Massaria a lot in private. You notice how she's never at the council, but she always talks to her in private, and seems like she's like they're forming kind of like a friendship or whatever, where she's consoling to her. She's complaining about, oh, these men talk around me and they don't talk to me, and they don't take me seriously. But she also admits that she hadn't had that. In a way, they're kind of right, because she hadn't had the war training, the battle training as a child, that she was a cupbearer instead, and saying that she wished she had that. But then Massaria brings up, and I think we get a lot more characters in the House of the Dragon, particularly this scene, that have the perspective of the small folk, of the little people, and how she's pointing out that pointing out that Cole made a mistake by parading the dragon part, and that she could take advantage of that. She can use that. Now, I'm still not exactly sure what she means by that, but it's definitely that she has this plan to use the small folk in some way, use their anger, and Rhaenyra seems on board. Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think with Rainy's gone now, I think for female advice, for female companionship, I think she's going to lean more and more into Massaria, and we'll see if that's a good thing or not. And yeah, I don't think she will ever formally be on the small council, but I think she will continue to be like a private advisor. She basically ended up maybe being the master of whispers, or the mistress of whisperers, unofficially. I think is where we're going to start to head, because I think she's probably going to be. We're getting hints of she's rebuilding her spy network within King's Landing. Or some of it, I don't know how much of it that the Hightowers were able to destroy. We know that all of the people that she would have had in the Red Keep would have been killed by Larys, because he killed all the people who weren't loyal to him, and replaced them with his stooges. But it does seem like she still probably has some sway in King's Landing. So I think we're going to continue to see her maybe act sort of like a Master of Whisperers type of role. But also just honestly, a female presence, adult presence that Rhaenyra can go and talk to. And like these, can you believe these fucking men talking around me? Like, what the fuck? Like, there's not, I mean, she's not going to go talk to one of her, she's not going to talk to Jace about that or any of her male advisors. So I think that's probably the role that Massaria plays for her, why she goes to her, because especially with Rhaenys gone now, I think we're going to see more and more of her leaning on Massaria. And we finally got this line that was in the preseason trailer that I feel like I saw a million times, where she goes, "There's more than one way to fight the wall." And I think everyone who read the books thought she was going to be talking about blood and cheese, and she was going to be suggesting blood and cheese, but that's not what it was. We'll see exactly what that is. It definitely involves turning the small folk against the Greens in some way, but we'll see what happens as we move forward. But I did find this interesting.
Oh yeah. And look, I don't know. I think the Master of Whisperers should be in the shadows there, so it would make sense that she would just go out and have her own direct little conversation with Bits. And you're right, it's not really official yet, but it does feel like he's pretty much inhabiting that role. And it also shows what can be done when the conversations can actually be had. I mean, in kind of stark contrast to the Black Council meeting, where there's talking around her and there's conversations just among kind of dismissal of her and just among the midst of arguing and bickering of what can be done. When Rhaenyra can actually have a conversation with someone and have some back and forth and some honest bit, some ideas can be thought, some insight can be found, some decisions can be made. So in a way that there's more than one way to fight a war, it really is kind of this way, is you almost have to work, I mean, not to get woke or nothing, but you got to work around the men that are not willing to have that conversation. And I think I'm hoping that is something when Corlys finally gets away from his damn boat and comes in as part of the small council, that he's going to help rein that in and focus that, because, acting as almost surrogate for Rhaenys. So that's kind of the hope, but it's great that we get to kind of have this idea, because she's right. The people see this as a dark omen. Again, our gods have been taken down in front of us. The sign of leadership, of kingdoms, of the king is being paraded through the street headless. Rhaenyra can represent a return to those previous times, a respect for that lineage, whereas Alyssa and the Greens don't represent it. So, yeah, the people of King's Landing, what'd she say? Call them thousands upon, thousands of thousands that can rise up and be an army already in the city, willing to turn over to bring Rhaenyra back, to bring us to more respectful times of old, when the dragons ruled properly where they should and are not paraded around the street. Disrespectful and all that, yo. So yeah, I'm kind of excited with where that may go. I mean, how that's going to manifest, I don't, but I think that's kind of the idea, is it's going to be, these are the false leaders, and they're proving it with what they do here, which will only build up on it once they find out they're all locked in the city.
Cool. So next we get Rhaenyra talking to Baela, and I actually really like this scene. I think it was needed after Rhaenys' death, sort of them sort of consoling and talking about what a great person that she was, and also more than that, it's Rhaenyra's like saying to Baela, is like, "Look, I need your support," and Bella's being all on board on doing that. But more than that, she says, "Give this to your grandsire," and this little pendant for the hand of the queen. And this is, as we mentioned before, I think we were talking about this just last week, that she didn't name anyone her hand this whole time. So I think she's seeing that she needs that more help. She needs the support, and she needs and as you were just saying, Darren, that the Black Council meetings were kind of been chaotic and just a bunch of old men going, do this, and they need someone to sort of bring more order and more support, and Corliss would definitely bring that. So I thought it was a nice scene. I thought it was a nice little sweet scene where Rhaenyra is realizing that she needs more support. Darren, we'll start with you on this one.
Again, I don't really have a whole lot more to add. It was beautiful. It was a nice remembrance. We do start to, again, talk about Rhaenys's strength in going down and getting the dragon, making her dad mad and all, or her husband at the time mad with all of that. And that she didn't care and she was strong and fearless and all that. So we do start to talk about the large dragons that live beneath, which we will hear about more later, which I thought was kind of a nice set. But yeah, I like the two of these. I like the characters together. I like that kind of power. I like that sort of trust and everything that's established. So I think this was just one of those beautiful scenes that really kind of sets up more of these female backdoor kind of connections, the way that we have to get things done in the world that they find themselves in.
Yeah, and I do notice that a pattern here of Rhaenyra seeking out the women around her and feeling comfortable with them and knowing she can trust them and going to them because, she's got the council of grumpy old white dudes, and I mean, she's bringing in a man that she trusts to be her hand, but the first people that she goes to to talk to, like, for advice, she goes to Mysaria, and then she goes to Baela. And I had heard before the season started that the show was going to get into Baela and Rhaena a little bit more than they are in the books, and I'm starting to see that, especially with Baela. Still want to see a little bit more of what Rhaena's doing in the Vale, but I'm starting to see that a little bit more in this episode, and I like it. I like these characters, and I liked that she generally believes in Rhaenyra because as we see, Corliss definitely has not always been on fully on team Rhaenyra and still really isn't, and Rhaenys had kind of faltered, although I think toward the end, I think she was maybe a little bit more sold on Team Rhaenyra, but certainly at the end of last season, she was like, yeah, I don't know. But Baela is someone who fully believes in Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra needs more of those people. So, Jace is another one. Even if he is being a spiteful little teenage boy, he does believe in his mother's cause. So I did like this connection that they had there. I did really like this scene as well.
Cool. So then we hit the twisted scene over with Damon. And when I first saw this, is Damon having sex with some random woman I didn't recognize. I'm like, all right. So and she looked like a Targaryen. So I was like, okay, either this is a Targaryen bastard who is just, he's at a whorehouse or something, or because he's in the Harrenhal, there doesn't seem to be that many whorehouses around there. So, or is this like a creepy vision? And as soon as she's like, oh, you should have been born first. You were always my favorite son. Creepy vision. I wonder if the show is trying to just do the shock value thing. I wonder, people come up with different metaphorical things of what it could mean. He wants to be father of the realm. And I'm just thinking that maybe it just means Targaryens are kind of fucked up. But anyway, I don't know. Or Daemon specifically is kind of fucked up. But but then after when he wakes up, we get more of him being bored in Harrenhal. You can tell how bored he is, and it's I don't give a shit. And he's going in and out of it. And the other guy is just to let you know, you want us to fix this castle up, and we're doing our best, but we kind of need money. These people kind of need to get paid, and maybe you should ask the queen. And it's like, no, I won't ask the queen. I'm gonna get the money myself. And I'm thinking, I was actually expecting him to go like on a bank robbery after this, like to go to some house and be like, give me all your money with this dragon or something like that. Like, how does he expect to get the money? But anyway, Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Bank robbery by dragon. Yeah, it might be a very effective way to rob a bank. I'm wondering. Well, I'm gonna go probably pre-answer my question as to probably no, but I'm wondering if there is ever going to be any point to why he had specifically envisioned himself having sex with his mother. If there's any like deeper reasoning that's ever going to be explained by the show, probably not. It's probably, as you said, probably just for shock value. And hey, they didn't, even if they didn't say her name, Damon's mom is named Alyssa Targaryen. And when I read Fire and Blood, I was like, hey, there's an Alyssa Targaryen. But I didn't expect her to appear on the show like this. Just weird. She says, "Oh, you were always my favorite son." There was another YouTube video that I watched that pointed out that Damon and Viserys have this conversation early in season 1, where they were like, "Oh, mother always liked you best. Oh no, she always liked you best," which is weird because I think they were both very, very, very young when she died. Like, I don't think she was around in their lives for very long.
And there's a video I watched that said that Damon was 3 years old when she died.
Yeah. So what does it matter whether the favorite son is like 3 and 5 years old or whatever? I don't remember how much older Viserys is than Damon, but yeah, she died when they were very, very young. So, but I guess this was the thing that they had talked about. Oh, you were her favorite. No, I was her favorite. But so I don't know if that was an intentional callback to that, having her say that, but yeah, I don't know. I think that I'm starting to get tired of the visions too. Although at least this time, this was really the only one I think we got in this episode. So and he did actually go out and do stuff. So maybe we're starting to veer away from that a little bit more. But yeah, this was a weird one though. This was the weirdest one. Now, as far as he wakes up and they're having that discussion about money. I don't know how he plans to solve that. Rhaenyra's side in general is short on the money because we got Tyland Lannister over there controlling the funds, but Daemon especially is broke. So I don't know. Maybe he's gonna go rob a bank by dragging back. I don't know. He's gonna rob the Iron Bank of Bravos with a dragon. All of a sudden, the show is going to turn into the Great Iron Bank heist, and we're like, wait, what? What is going on? But I think it just goes to show that Daemon has problems even before we get to the later scene that we'll talk about. Daemon's he's not doing well. He's just being stuck in all these visions, and meanwhile his world is falling apart around him. Things are just not going well for him, and this was an example of that. Like, hey, we don't have any money.
So next week, it's Damon's 11. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, he's going to get a ragtag group of specialists from across Westeros in order to, rob the Iron Bank.
You son of a bitch, Amen.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, look, honestly, I thought that it was Alice Rivers in a Targaryen kind of wig or hair initially when I first saw the scene in the back and forth. So when she does make that mention about you were always my favorite, I was like, I think I kind of like pushed that aside, like, no, that couldn't be Mom, because that would be weird. But they're Targaryens. I'm assuming incest is just kind of part of family planning. I mean, the fact that he is, sleeping with his niece or married to his niece, I mean, that already kind of says something right there, I think. But yeah, didn't really need all of this. Getting a little bored of the Damon slowly kind of going insane. We do get to see him again more dealing with having to deal with the realities of trying to be the king he keeps claiming that he is. And even with this, more along the lines of, well, do I call it a king regent? Well, why do you even have that last part? I mean, king is just it's just quick, it's easy, it's efficient. Damon is just wanting efficiencies. That's why he does his own housework. He built, he's a builder. But yeah, this is, I don't know. I like Matt Smith. Definitely seeing a character slowly losing their mind is kind of cool, but it's also, I don't know. Let's move it along. How much time are we going to spend on all these individual notes? Yeah, that's only it. So much of the show is they're good. Everything's well done. It just feels like we're dragging.
Now, I definitely felt that with this scene. Well, particularly when he's talking to Simon again, it's like the same kind of thing. And you like your your lamb chops or whatever the hell?
Yeah. Ew, just enough icky food shots. Come on, man.
Yeah, I do say I will say I do like. Is it Simon?
Yeah,
I do like this character, but I also agree that a little bit much. Like, let's move along. We don't need all of those things. I can still enjoy this character without having as many scenes with him and Damon.
Yeah. So, next group of scenes I want to talk about, I have a feeling Darrin might think we're boring, but I actually quite like them. We get more scenes with the blacksmith, Hugh the Hammer, where his wife and his child, and they haven't got the money that they were promised. Now, I was told, I didn't notice this, but I watched a video last week about last week's episode, and that one the small council scene where Aegon's like, I'm bored, you guys bore me, and walk off. Apparently, they were talking about how they didn't have enough money to pay like the blacksmiths and other people, so they were basically saying we're not going to pay him when in the earlier episode, Aegon promised that. Now, of course, Aegon's not around, so I think it's going to be very fair to say that he's not going to get this money. And so we see him talking to his wife. Oh, the king said he'd pay me, and he's just like, no, you can't trust that. And it's funny that they're keeping the fact that the king is incapacitated private, as we see in the next scene when they're trying to get out of King's Landing. They're like, by order of the Prince Aemon, and they're like, what did they say, Aegon? Like, they don't really know what's going on. And so I think his wife is obviously right that no, we need to get out of here. And I got kind of Walter White vibes from him, saying like, oh, you will turn me into a beggar, like he's letting his pride get the better of him. He has to be the one providing food, and you want to turn beggar and you want to go. But we see that eventually he was convinced to leave, but as they go to leave, it was a bit too late and they were all stuck in there. And it was interesting seeing like all the small folk and how Aemon ordered, which I'll get to that scene shortly. But oh wait, I know we already skipped over that part, I think. Did we?
The Green Council scene comes first, and then we see because effectively this is the fallout of the decisions from the Green Council scene. So
I think we skipped it already.
Yeah, that's okay. So we'll double back on it. But yeah, but that was interesting. This is the fallout of, and this seems like it was a wise decision based on what the other counselors were telling Aemon to do, saying, these small folk are going to then keep them locked in. But we're saying how this is not a good thing. And so I've heard some speculation that maybe this is what Mysaria's emissary is going to try to rile up these people, and because they are seriously not happy. But anyway, Alyssa, we'll start with you on Hugh the Hammer.
Are we talking about both scenes at the same time, or are we going to get to the other one later?
Well, both Hugh scenes.
Both
Both.
Hughes, so the one when he's leaving as well.
Yeah.
We can touch
Yeah.
on that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He says. I think he says. Yeah, you would make me a baker, and she's like, "We're already beggars. Like, get real." So I mean, she convinces him because like he doesn't really. I mean, there really isn't any other choice. But yeah, I do remember now the Green Council scene was before this because I remember thinking like, oh, he's not going to be able to leave because they just ordered the gates closed, and then we do get that, and Mark, you and I will have some more talk about Hugh in the spoiler section, but for now, yeah, we see him desperately trying to get out with his daughter, and now what is he going to do, and what are any of the people going to do? And I do think that, yeah, I think Massaria is going to use this. Her, I forget the name of the character, but the handmaiden, whoever, of Rhaenyra's handmaiden who sneaks in there on behalf of Massaria. I think that they are going to use that, use this to have them turn against the Greens. And I watched another YouTube video that pointed out, I would never have noticed this on my own, but an earlier scene when they show them like grabbing food and selling food, and like there's all these like this different pieces of food that have mold all over it, and they're picking out the food with the least mold on it. So this is a result of Corlys's blockade against all the goods coming into King's Landing from overseas. So they've already got this, but then now being not allowed to leave King's Landing, I think that we're going to start to see, yeah, the small folk get more and more restless about this as we move forward. So yeah, this will be something to keep an eye on. And as I said, I do appreciate that they are like showing the point of view from small folk, but I'm really curious to see. And if you watch the trailer, we do get a little hints of where this might be headed. But I'm interested in to see how the small folk react moving forward now, and if we'll continue to see Hugh as a representation of that.
Yeah, I mean, it is the little people that get hurt the most in times of war. It's the general population. It's everybody else around. It's the innocents. It's the civilians, more so than the actual armies that tend to fight, because they're the ones that are either taken advantage of or whose concerns are cast aside. And that's exactly what we're starting to see in King's Landing here, as we have represented. The goods aren't coming in. The money is spending on the war. It doesn't have coin to pay for its stuff. So people can't buy food. And then we see lock up because of these decisions to, again, protect the realm and watch for the war. We have the city get sealed off and nobody can leave. And all of that is just going to further foment this frustration and anger with the people that are in charge, which are the Greens at this point. So, yeah, I think we are seeing all of these points kind of laid out that can be taken advantage of by the blacks carefully in setting stuff up. If they can turn the people to their side and say, you want to get back to the time of peace, we want to get back to this line, and this is the way that we do it. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing through all this. So I do like these moments because we are seeing the direct effects that it's playing on and the people and the frustration that they're in charge. And, you know, a person will do a lot to protect their family. And if their family's in danger, they're going to strike out even more. And we're definitely seeing that with these characters here. So I like seeing this. They don't spend a whole lot, but it's directly, but the story is very direct of what's being told here.
Yeah, I think I like these scenes too. I think it enhances the small folk perspective of things and how war is just bad affects the little people, as they say. But yeah, as Brandon points out in the chat, small folk, even the name denigrates them.
Yeah.
Oh, the little people, they're so cute like that when they get all uppity. No. I was going to say, as a small folk right here, I'm just going to go ahead and self-identify.
So now we'll double back to the old Green Council scene where Eamon's basically like, "Here, Allison, you want some of this? You want some of this? This is your own medicine. Have a taste. Have a taste of your own medicine." Because I think it's kind of because she's like, "Oh, well, yes, I should become regent and whatever, and I've done it before," and everyone's like, "Well." I'm sorry, but actually, they bring up a good point. They're like, well, our whole claim over the kingdom is a woman isn't fit to rule. So how does that make us look if we put a woman up to rule? I'm like, Allison, it's your fault for doing this whole coup thing in the first place. But the real reason why, of course, she's against is because she sees Aemon as a monster. She thinks that she even points out that his reckless behavior has caused us problems, whatever. But they're like, and one by one, like even Kristen Cole's like, no, I get, she turned to Laris. She's like, Laris is like, no, I'm sorry, I agree. Aemon should be regent, and Kristen Cole's like, yes, we need a strong leader to be regent. And I like how like Aemon is like completely silent the whole time while they're all talking about him, but as soon as like they came to the decision, he's like, "Oh, it's decided." Then just picks up the ball and just walks around, sits in the king's chair. Okay, you do this, you do this. Oh, how's this going? Oh, well, why should I trust you? You do that. Okay, next time we shall meet. Like he immediately sat down and I love the way this was shot, where we like focused on Allison for a long time and all their voices were muffled and everything, because she's like, it shows just how devastating this is to her, having a taste for her medicine, and how things are just continuing getting worse for her. So anyway, Darren, we'll start with you on this one.
Yes, men talking around her, quite literally. And no, this is honestly, I love this scene just because of that long shot on Allison. The show's been very generous in giving actors real moments to do stuff, really to act. We had Rhaenyra, was it in episode 2, like have like no lines or but one line during the whole episode?
The first episode,
In the
1.
first episode, yeah. I mean, really giving a chance to do some meaty expressions, some definite stuff. And I think it really paid off because you see so many of those things coming over her of like, is this what it feels like? And now I'm just cast aside. Is this what Rhaenyra was going on? This is exactly the same type. You could just see all of these thoughts and then like even reacting to what is being heard. I think she easily foresaw what was going to be happening in the following scenes when the city gets shut down and the effects that that's going to have. I think that she's just seeing like this, it's all falling apart. They're making horrible choices and no one is going to listen to me because I'm a woman. And it was just, I just loved how it happened. And again, the kind of cascading effect. Laris even doing it. It's like, oh no, feet tickles here. And then, Cole's doing it. Oh yeah. What did she say it later on? I guess I'm only the queen at after night or when the sun sets or some things like that. It's just no. It was beautiful. But and Aemon actually showing how he really is a much more clever, I don't know if that's a word, a leader, definitely darker, but he knows I don't have to do anything. I will let it all play out because the system is set up for me and everybody will back me. And especially as Lara says, well, of course it has to be Aemon. We can't put you in charge. It wouldn't look right if we were did the exact same thing that we're fighting against. Which again is that perfect kind of comparison. It was just, I just loved how it just tore Allison down right there, and you can see just the mistakes forming around, and how it's just gonna get bad with this group of people in charge.
Yeah, I think the ironic thing is I actually agree with Allison when she said, like, look, Aemon is a skilled warrior. He has a dragon. We need his skill in battle. He should be leading battle, but I know about the meanings like this. I should be in charge here. And I think she's correct. But again, she's kind of reaping what she sowed. And it's just the same kind of thing with Chris and Cole. Like, you shouldn't make him hand of the king. But anyway, Alyssa, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when they go to Kristen, he's like, "Yeah, I agree, it's Amen." I mean, I think if he was pro Allison to me, it would just be like, everybody would just turn around and go, "Are you fucking?" Like it would just be too obvious. Um, but yeah, Laris is absolutely right. You can't fight a claim for a woman and then put a woman up on the crown on your end as well. I mean, you got to be consistent with your sexism, and I, and they very much are. And I think both Alicent and Rhaenyra were maybe a little naive on just like how misogynistic their society actually is. And I think Rhaenys has had speeches with both of them, has talked with both of them to tell them like, you guys are naive. Like we live in the world of men, and I think Rhaenyra is starting to see that on her Black Council, and Alicent is seeing that in a big way. That because from the beginning she had this delusion that she and her father were going to be able to control Aegon. Um, and her father maybe, but she never really had any chance as the mother, as the woman, of having any control over Aegon at all. And she believed that she actually had that chance, and now she's coming to the reality that she never had a chance of having any kind of real leadership role being a woman. And yeah, I too love that scene where they just focus in on her for well. Although I think they're kind of saying important things, but I can't really focus on what is being said because like we're just focusing in on.
I put the subtitles on because I wanted to hear what they were saying.
Yeah. What were they saying during that time? Is this when they decided to close the city, or was that after that?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
yeah. Because we get this ending of the scene here where Aemon just says, "And by the way, can we cut down the fucking rat catchers?"
Yeah.
Which
We're going to clean things up immediately.
Yeah. Which I think is symbolic of showing that he is going to go in a different direction than Aegon, that he's not Aegon. That we've seen the rat catchers, like every time we see them slowly deteriorating, and so now they're just like skeletons. And so now Aemon is finally like, can we just cut down the fucking rat catchers already? So I think we see that Aemon is even though he is, just the Prince Regent, acting supposedly in his brother's name, I don't think he's going to give a shit about what his brother would have done or what his brother thinks. He's going to act like the ruler now. And I think that was kind of symbolic of that. Him saying to undo something that Aegon has done. Well, not undo it because the Ratcatchers are dead, but to just kind of wipe the slate clean there with that. I think that was a very symbolic gesture.
Yeah, and I think it's showing that he's better at ruling too. That he wouldn't do dumb shit like what Aegon did. And it was a good point you said about how Allison thought she could control Aegon and definitely couldn't, but she's gonna have even less control over Aemon.
Yeah, which I think she realizes now.
Yeah.
Before she was delusional enough to think she could control Aegon. And I think, one of the things she's probably sitting on in that scene where they're focusing on her is her realization, like, I'm going to have no control over this guy whatsoever. Like, and she's so this feeling of complete helplessness and loss of control that she's not used to because she previously had led herself to believe that she could control the king, where now she's realizing there's no way in hell, and now I'm just totally helpless.
Yeah, I like what Brandon says in the chat. I felt a bit sorry for Allison, I must admit. And yes, Eamon is almost as loose of a cannon as Damon. Yeah, and I think they're definitely drawing the parallels between the two of them. The two of them are definitely seen as birds of a feather. They're very similar in the regard of just, having violence first and ask questions later kind of approach, and so it makes it a bit more scary having Eamon in charge and Cole as his hand.
Yeah, both of them are trying to seize power for themselves. Eamon did that last week and it worked. We see now that we'll talk about this a little bit more, but Damon is doing that as well. And this is both of this is a change from a book of the books. The book says nothing about either of these guys trying to seize power for themselves, but they're both trying to do that. So we're now seeing both sides this internal strife happening, which I find really interesting, and both of it caused by the Amond and Damon character. Someone pointed out that if you take the D from the end of Amon's name and put it in the front, it spells Damon. So,
Yeah.
so they're very much, birds of a feather.
All right, so then we'll go over to the old twins, to the phrase. I like this thing. I thought this was a good scene that Jace is actually proving himself and showing himself he was a good negotiator. Like he was showing a strong front. Like I like his one line when they were saying, well, when the Freys were hesitant, they were like, well, quite frankly, we're afraid of Vagar. And it's like, so you fear a dragon like thousands of miles away when mine sits right outside your gate. So it's a little bit of intimidation, but not too much. Like he shows that he's willing to negotiate. And when they say they want Harrenhal, they were like, okay, if you want Harrenhal, we'll need a little bit more than just your passing. We need you to bend the knee, which I think is fair and it makes sense, and it happens off screen. But I think we get the impression that they agreed to it because that's what they reported. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to find. Hold on. I was trying to bring up the map here again. Because everyone always talks about, like, and it just brought up in Game of Thrones as well, about how the twins like sits on an important point. This is the whole reason why Jace is negotiating for it, because apparently the Stark men, 2,000 men that they're sending, would get there way faster if they're able to pass. And this is the whole reason for the Red Wedding thing, negotiating passing of this. And apparently that's how the phrase got rich originally, was through not able to find it. Oh well, you guys talk. I'll see if I can bring up the map. But it's on the map. It doesn't look that crucial of a choke point, but apparently it is, and it saves like they had to go like 100 or like very far around in order to get around the river if they don't have this passing. And so this is an important accomplishment for Jace to do. So anyway, Darren, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I like this scene. I like seeing Jace doing the negotiations. Again, it was kind of curious to be like, okay, what's this generation of Freys going to be like? Are they going to be creepy? And they really weren't. They were just negotiating. And they had a position, and Jace was making an offer, and they did some back and forth. And again, I'm liking to see Jace this because he didn't get upset. He wasn't being arrogant. He was listening. When they, said what they would want, he saw that there was more value in that. He made a counteroffer. They came to a deal. And he left feeling very much like, okay, I'll bring this up to the queen. If we get it all approved, we're good to go. And I just thought that was nice. And I did really like that line about, you're afraid of a dragon 1,000 leagues away and mine's right here. I thought was kind of a perfect comeback. And it does sort of, and we did get a little bit of the hint of the whole Damon thing as well, because he had promised, we'll protect you and my uncle, and he agrees to this. Oh, well, he will, of course. So we're starting to get those feelings from the outside that Damon is causing a little bit more troubles, that he's maybe in this more for himself than the whole team type kind of idea. which is also very cool. So yeah, I really liked how this all played out.
Cool. So finally figured out the map. Yeah, we see that the Twins is like further north than most of the Riverlands, and most of the Riverlands is like all the way down here. Like Harrenhal is like further down off the screen. So yeah, I see why it's an important choke point for the North. But anyway, Alyssa.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Jace went there seeking to get access to their crossing for the Northmen, and then walked away with not only that, but with their knees. They're bending the knees. I wonder if he went in there thinking like, I'm going to try to get them to bend the knee to Rhaenyra, or if that was just something he saw as an opportunity in the moment. But either way, he's just remarkably good at diplomacy. And I'll say what I was going to say about Jace earlier. I'm really loving the development of this character as being an actual character. That's another thing I heard before the start of the season is that we were going to put a little more emphasis on this younger generation. And I am really seeing that. I'm really enjoying what they're doing with Jace. Whereas last season, I think he was more of a walking, talking plot device. Like he's just Rhaenyra's kid, and that's all he was. And I think that's the same with Rhaena and Baela. They were just Daemon's kids, and that's all they were as plot devices. And now we're starting to see them all being developed. I think Rhaena the least so far, and Baela second, and then Jace as he should be the most because he's the most important to the story because he is Rhaenyra's heir. But I do like that they're making Jace more into a character, giving him more of a personality, making him more important in the war. And I like that they showed he's a damn good negotiator. How did he learn how to negotiate like this? He's really good. So I did really like this scene, and I do like what they're doing with Jace this season, as opposed to last season. He just comes in toward the end, and we see him as a little kid, and we don't even really see him as an old as he is now until the very end of the season. So I love that they're developing him more, and Baela too, who has a good scene we'll talk about soon. I think.
All right, so want to talk about Alice Rivers, and I got quite a bit to say about her. This is an interesting scene when Daemon was like actually getting his hands dirty, and I liked how Alice like pointed out, oh, you have servants and other people can do this for you. It's like I don't just like sitting around and doing nothing. I like actually getting the hard work done. But she kind of brings up, she's like, oh yes, I hear what's going on with the Brackens, and he's like, oh, there's news. She's like, no, not news. I hear whispers in the wind. So she's obviously using some of her magic, but she can hear the suffering of this, talking about the small folk, the little people, and farms are being burned up, people being killed and kidnapped, and they're kidnapping them and holding them and saying how all this shit is fucked up. And he's like, and she even said no upright person would condone that kind of thing. It's like, you mistake me for an upright person, do you? But and he has that sort of gruff attitude. It's like, oh well, they didn't bend the knee, so that's their own fault. They get what's coming to them, and she's kind of leading him to, now that's that's not a good thing. It's fucked up, and it's a sort of foreboding of what's to come later in the episode. But I want to talk about Alice Rivers because I've heard different theories on her, and I outright think are wrong about her motivations, because I heard some people talk about, like, they think that she's purposely trying to sabotage Daemon, or that she's purposely trying to lead him to want power for himself and to become king and to spur Rhaenyra. But I don't get that impression, because she even said, oh, did the queen sanction this to him? And he was like, oh, I don't care. Like, she said shit to him in previous episodes about, oh, but you deserve to be king, didn't you? She's not saying that to try to push him into wanting to be king. I think she's saying that to say she knows what he already thinks, that he already he thinks that. And I think the visions, and I think she is somewhat responsible or at least aware of these visions, because she points out, oh, I wish, wish it would have been a good thing if you knew your mother. That was like, right after that. So it really implies she knows about the visions, and the visions really seem to be implying or making him feel guilty about the way he's treating Rhaenyra, or guilty about the way he treated his ex-wife, and trying to push him in the right direction of not wanting power. And quite frankly, I think that's the only thing that's going to be able to do this. We'll talk about Sir Alfred later, but him coming to try to talk to Daemon, he's not going to convince Daemon to change his mind. Like, no one is going to convince Daemon to actually change his mind and support Rhaenyra. But I think, except for maybe these visions, and I think that's what the direction that Alice is doing. And I think it's clear that she cares about the small folks, just kind of like Mysaria. She cares about how this will affect people at all, and she's trying to push Daemon away from doing these kind of fucked up things. But I've heard other theories thinking that she's purposely trying to sabotage the blacks because she's a Green supporter or stuff like that, and I just don't buy that. But anyway, Alyssa, I want to get your opinion on this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think she's necessarily on the Greens or the Blacks. I think that she, like you said, is does care about small folk, cares about the people in the Riverlands specifically, and yeah, I think this conversation makes it pretty clear that she is trying to steer Daemon away from the fucked up shit he's doing, the hurting the people. And I don't think it necessarily has to do with she wants him to do better because she wants the blacks to win. I think it has more to do with stop fucking with the people in the Riverlands. But she certainly has just a really unique approach, shall we say, of accomplishing her ends. But I do believe that's what her motivations are. So I totally agree with you. And I also agree with you that, yeah, she's at least aware of what the visions are, if maybe not directly responsible for them in some way. If she's not actually directing his visions, and she is aware, because that's too much of a coincidence for her to just happen to bring up his mother. I mean, come on. So yeah, and I thought that this was a very telling scene in that way. It does kind of give us a little bit of that motivation. I'm wondering, Mark, if you heard people saying this before this episode, or were people saying that even after?
No, after. I didn't even hear it until after this episode.
Okay, yeah, because I don't. That's interesting. Yeah, because I definitely saw it more the way that you did. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what you thought, Darrin.
Well, I think it's more like the place has an effect on people, and she is just, the wise negotiator, navigator of the realm, kind of things. It's like, if you want to put it in magic terms, it's a magic cursed place, and she just happens to be the witch or magic user that can either tap into it or uses that power, or is there to try and negotiate within it. So yeah, I mean, she's given the idea that she is at least, psychic or connected, or knows the knowledge. As you said, I've heard things on the winds and on the whispers and things like that. She had already hit on Daemon's relationship with Rhaenyra and the complications, and that he is running from that, and he's trying to establish his own place here. So I think she can see into men's souls. She can see into Daemon and what his motivations are. And I think that she is trying to use the place that makes you reflect on all of your doubts and haunts and curses and dark moments and desires to negotiate, like, you've got to change or you're going to die here. You keep hurting all of the people and all of your stuff. You disregard everybody else. And to me, this is kind of an interesting thing of tying this right after the whole Jace scene, is because Jace seems to be the best actual statesman of anybody that's out there. He's negotiating. He's finding out what people want. He's trying to search for ways to do it. Everybody else is like, my way or the highway. side with me or you die, or we come after you, or we cut off your head, or whatever that type of thing is. And I think Alice is using that kind of opportunity to go, look, you're making bad choices and you've got a lot of hate and stuff behind you that's making you cause all of these bad choices. If you keep at it, they're going to bite you on the butt. And that's really what this whole episode is for Daemon, is seeing how his bad choices end up costing him at the end, when he could have had a clearer victory if he didn't do something quite so hurtful to the small folk. Again, if you, I mean, they say it in the scene later on, so we'll hit that particular point, but, you know, where do you focus your ire, I guess, and then we'll leave it at that. Yeah. But this is also the scene, sorry, which I did love, is we do get Daemon's plan. His whole idea here is he tells
Yeah,
Alice,
that's right. That's right.
yeah, is that, look, I'm going to take the Riverlands, I'm going to take King's Landing, then I will be king, and of course Rhaenyra will be the queen, but my queen, and we will serve equally. At least he does seem to have that idea of equally. He doesn't want to be the regent, he wants to be the king, even if it's the king next to his queen.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
not
there's something like Rhaenyra's welcome to join me if she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's basically what he
Yeah.
said. He's like, I'm going to be king, and if she wants to be my queen, no, that's all good. But
Yeah.
But at least, yeah, we see what his kind of idea with all of this is, so we can see how horribly it's going to go wrong.
Yeah. And I think, as I said, I like we finally get this out in the open, because they kept hinting at it, but finally they just say it outright that's what he's trying to do. But then at the end of this episode, we'll see things are not going well for him. So I'm very curious to see if Daemon is going to be able to change his tune. If Rhaenyra, I agree with you, Mark. Sir Alfred Broom is not going to do shit to convince Daemon of anything. If anything, like I said, I think I could see him being convinced to join Daemon to be like, actually, you should be king because you're a man. Like, I can see it. So. But is Rhaenyra going to be able to persuade him, or is Alice Rivers or Harrenhal? And I also want to jump back to something Darrin said about, it's this place that's making him have these visions. But why only him? Like, why is it focused on Daemon? Like, do you think? I don't think Sir Simon Strong is waking up having these weird visions of having sex with his mother. So it does seem to be focused. I mean, it's coming from Harrenhal, supposedly. It's a thing from Harrenhal, but I think Alice Rivers has her hand in there somewhere, because she might be channeling dark magic that exists in Harrenhal to Daemon or something, because he seems to be the only one who experiences these visions. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever actually get any kind of explanation to this, but that's my thought. That is, it might be from Harrenhal, but I do feel like Alice Rivers has something to do with directing it to Daemon, because no one else seems to be having these visions.
It's because Simon never has the duck. No. Yeah. No. It totally feels like Alice is definitely focused on Daemon. So I agree that she could be focusing all these powers at. It's just, I don't know. Harrenhal always seems to have like the haunted kind of place and idea. So it's like, I don't know if it would be like that, whether she was there or not. And who does it pick to haunt? I don't know. The most fun? Maybe it's just got a dark sense of humor, and Simon's just boring.
Well, I got that impression from the first vision that he had when he first got there, that Alice was directly responsible for the vision or involved in it in some way. But people are also saying it's because he's sleeping in a bed made out of the heart trees, and they're known to cause like creepy visions and stuff.
Well, go sleep in another bed, man. Come on.
That would be giving in, man. He's not going to give in.
Well, yeah, in that first episode, she flat out, she's the one who comes out when he's at the weirwood tree and is like, you're going to die here. Like, it so very much seemed like she was involved in some way. But,
yeah. Yeah, but and also like Darren, you also brought up the earlier scene when he was talking to Sir Simon and saying that when Simon was like, "Oh, my prince," I was like, "I'm not the prince, I'm the king." And it's like, "You're not the king." And it's like, "Well, what do you call the person married to the queen? The king." There you go, consort. It's like, yeah, that last part's really not necessary. Really shows his mindset at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really curious to see if he's gonna be persuaded to break out of this, or is he just gonna go on continue on this dangerous path?
I think the only one who can convince him is Harrenhal, is the Visions. I think
So you don't think Rhaenyra herself will be able to convince him? It's going to have to be Harrenhal and / Ellis Rivers.
I think Rhaenyra could convince him with help from the Visions. Like,
yeah, okay,
yeah. So then we move over to Corlys on Driftbart, and I will say this. He's at least not standing in front of his boat getting repaired in this episode. Although we assume that his boat's getting repaired off screen, but still, at least they didn't show it this time.
That boat will never be repaired.
Season of repair. Oh, but by season 3, he'll be on the ship.
That'll be the final scene at the end of season 4 or whatever, however far they go. After the whole war is over, there'll be this post-credit scene. Some dude like, oh, I finished it. I finished the boat.
I think that's definitely the symbol more than anything else about how the season needs to speed things along. How long does it take to fix it?
Like, at this point, I'm not going to be happy unless the moment the boat is fixed, a dragon comes and sets it on fire. That's the only way out of this at this point.
But all that being said, I think we did really need this scene, because I think in the spoiler section last week we were talking about how in the books Corlys is very angry and upset with Rhaenyra and, like, you know, yells at her and refuses to help. But in that case, that was a different situation, because he was mad at her because she's like, "Why didn't you go instead of Rhaenys?" But in this case, like, he was there when he told her not to go, and Rhaenys went so that voluntarily, and so it was a different situation. So I knew they wouldn't play it the same way they played in the book, but I think we did need something of him being all very downtrodden and upset, and even a little directing his anger towards Rhaenyra, which makes all the sense in the world, even just to show, because both of his children and how his wife had died because of Rhaenyra around her. Well, not his daughter so much, but anyway, still, he lost his whole family.
Well, Daemon is very much tied to
True.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but so he lost all his family, so I think we needed this, and I think it was a great scene. I thought it was a very good use of Bella, how she, you know, shows up and they're reminiscing about her, and he's being all, "Oh, I'm just gonna go off into the west and trample off and do whatever and go to the seas, but your boat's never going to be fixed." But anyway, but I love her response of saying, "Oh, that's what you did before when Lena, and when Lena died, you did this before, and it's, you know, and you're neglecting everyone around you. You neglected your wife, you neglected me, and so instead of feeling sorry for yourself, maybe you should, you know, actually and not feel sorry for Niche. She died the way that she wanted to die in Dragonfire. It's the way my mother wanted to die. That's the way I would like to die." Like, that was powerful, and also in the way she just said, "Look, Rhaenys, you know, died trying to make Rhaenyra the king, like the queen, like she should have been the queen in the first place. So that's what I'm gonna do. You do whatever the hell you want," and gives them that hand of the queen pendant. I thought that was maybe my favorite scene in the whole episode. I thought it was absolutely powerful. Probably definitely the best Corlys scene this season. But anyway, not a high bar. Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Well, definitely the best Bela scene ever.
Mm.
And again, going back to the point that they were going to focus more on the younger generation, and we're seeing that really play out in this episode, where we're starting to see these characters be developed more, and Bela is more than just Damon's daughter or Corliss's granddaughter. That yeah, that speech was great. And then at the end, he was like, "Bela, I would name you my heir," and she's like, dude, I'm fire and blood. I'm not seeing salt or whatever. And I love that. Yeah, that she's like, yeah, here's the pendant. You do whatever the fuck you want. I'm gonna go support Rhaenyra now, and I think that really speaks to Corlys. We skipped over some other scenes with Corlys. I'm just kind of standing around brooding, like looking at the driftwood throne and what you know. There's a scene in the trailer with him just standing there looking over the war, whatever the map thing on the table, the painted table or whatever. I hope we don't get a whole nother full episode of him standing around looking at things and and deciding. It does seem like at the end of the episode, like he grasped the hand of the queen pin in his hand tighter. So that seems to imply he's made his decision. Let's move on to just. I want him in the next episode to be like, okay, I'm your hand of the queen. Let's get going, and not stand around and decide, make a decision again for for half the episode. But I do like that this is how he's gonna get out of that kind of feedback loop where he's stuck in just thinking about Rhaenys is dead and Rhaenyra's fault and blah blah blah. I love Bela in this scene in particular, just how she just tells him what's what, and ending, how the scene ended with her like, "Bitch, I'm fire and blood." I love that. So strong scene for Corlys, but for me, I was thinking more of a strong scene for Bela, even more so.
Yeah, I don't really have much more to add. I think you guys kind of hit everything on there. It gave us the Corlys arc that you needed so he could get onto things. And you're right, the other scene where he was just kind of like grasping the thing and having the emotional reaction, I guess you want to have that and not just quick, like, I know you feel bad, but we got a job for you. Let's get going. I guess you got to spend a little bit of time to do that. But you're right. It was a great scene for him to have that anger, frustration, and then get snapped out of it. And I even like the little story in the midst of it where he was talking about Rhaenys, that's like, you went out and you fought all these things and you brought all this stuff back and these great prizes and these things that made you legendary. And I wonder if any of those lords know that you did all of that for her. None of it was for them. It was all for her, for Rhaenys. And I think that that's a great way to remind him of his love and respect for her, that kind of like the scene that we had between Rhaenyra and Bela before, talking about how she won her dragon to show how great she was. And now we connect it with Corlys to go, so do you want to honor her memory, or do you want to sit here and keep whining about your boat that's never going to get fixed? So, it was a great scene. It was beautiful. I'm definitely liking the characters and all of that. And I do appreciate that it seemed to like, okay, we do this. I guess we got to have the one more scene where he stares at the pin for a while. But quite honestly, this was really the only scene that I needed for all of that to get that story told and to move forward for the next one or next stage.
To be fair, those other scenes weren't really technically scenes because they were like 30 seconds long or something, just him staring and brooding. So I was fine with them. But I agree with Alyssa. No more of those. Let's just get straight to the point in the next episode. All right. So then we get Rhaenyra summoning Sir Alfred Broom. You said his name was?
Yeah, Sir Alfred Broom.
Yeah, and
like Broume or something.
Swept away.
Yeah, it's not spelled the same way, but yeah.
And sending him off to Harrenhal to meet with Damon, and I like his reaction. It's like, oh, so you're kicking me off the council? It's like, well, I wouldn't be lying if I said you didn't test my patience, but the reason why I'm sending you is because I know that you're loyal to, and you would never let the Greens be controlled. He's like, yes, I'd die first. So it shows it's true that even though he's a sexist prick, he still is devoted and loyal to her cause. And I think this is also a smart decision for her because she says, I'm not just going to send another raven for him to ignore, which is what he's been doing. So she needs to get like eyes and ears on the ground and see actually what the hell's going on in Harrenhal, because she realizes that they need the Riverlands desperately. Like that's how they're going to win the war. And they need to see. And also an interesting point she brings up, see what his intentions are. Is he intending to take the throne for himself or for me? And Alfred's like, well, he dare not do that and whatever. And she said, did you ever know Damon not to be daring? And so yeah, it's going to be interesting how exactly that plays out. But I think this is her being a good ruler and making the smart move. Darrin, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I totally agree. And in fact, that was the one thing that I did like about the end, how kind of upset that it made Sir Alfred to even suggest that Damon would go against his queen. And it's like, you see it like, okay, so you're kind of a misogynist dick, but you are respectful. It's like, and he has said it. He's like, look, I put myself, you are the queen. He just doesn't really accept what that actually means, that is the same thing as proclaiming for a king. So if this gave an opportunity for this guy to evolve, dare I say, I mean, I think that would be sort of a great bit. And the fact that she is kind of honest and straightforward, you're absolutely right there, Mark. This is her being a good ruler. Hey, I'm being honest with you, and yeah, we fight, but I respect your position. You're the one that can do this. I need somebody that I can trust who is going to be sure to be on my side. And so I think that while it does feel in some ways dismissive, I think it's also a great indication of trust as well. And I think it's a way for her to measure, is Sir Alfred really going to be on my side, or is he going to turn? Maybe she's kind of weighing all that. And if he is, he'll be over there and he'll be off my council, and then we can plan accordingly.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of read it kind of as like, oh, you're just trying to get rid of me. And she's like, no, no, I trust you. What are you talking about? I mean, but honestly, she kind of is, killing two birds with one stone here. She's going to find out what Damon is up to, find out what his intentions are, give him a message, take care of all that, but also get rid of that fucking asshole on her council for a little while, and maybe hopefully, she doesn't know yet, he hasn't accepted, but hopefully have Corliss come in and be a voice of reason, and have this, dickwad not on the council for a little bit. So, I mean, it's really a win-win for her. So I actually think it was a brilliant plan. Let me get rid of this asshole, but also let me find out what Damon is up to, and give him a message. And I like that he asks if there any message you want to deliver, and she says, yes, I would very much like to finish our conversation. So yeah, so I think there's a possibility that in the very end of it, maybe Rhaenyra will be the one who persuades him. But in order for him to be willing to have a conversation with Rhaenyra and to listen to her, to finish that conversation, as she says, it's going to be some more creepy visions in Harrenhal and Alice River stuff to push him in that direction. But I think that. But in the end of it, it might be Rhaenyra who finally does persuade him, hopefully, to go back to her side. But I guess we'll see.
So then we get on Harrenhal. The River Lords come to meet with Daemon and wake him up in the middle of the night, and he's all. I do like his response to Sir Simon. It's like, "What is it, pudding time?" Whatever. But no, they all come and he comes in like really arrogant too. He's like, "Oh, I see. I have to teach you some manners and how you treat your Targaryen masters," and calls himself the king. And they completely ignore all that and just be like, look, the freaking Blackwoods are doing this under Targaryen banners, which I'm sure was Daemon's idea for them to actually be carrying Targaryen banners when they were doing that. But they, torturing people and destroying the livestock and destroying the land, and like, look, we're not gonna, deal with the tyrant. We'd rather die. And so they're being basically turned all of these different houses into what the Brackens were saying is like, go ahead and set us on fire. We're not going to support you if you're going to behave like a fucking tyrant. And again, we get that line from that one dude who was like, oh yes, and you're the one who ordered the young Prince Jaehaerys to be executed in the night. He's like, who told you this? Bring that man before me. It's like, that man is half the realm, which I thought was a nice zinger. But what I found interesting about this scene, and what I think is what it signifies to me, is that Rhaenyra and Daemon are kind of like, if they join together, they could really be powerful, because Rhaenyra is admitting that she wasn't trained for war. She didn't know, she was never trained up for war and battle, and is lacking a bit and wish she knew more about that. Daemon knows a lot about that, but on the other hand, Daemon sucks as a diplomat, and he needs Rhaenyra, who's actually a good diplomat and knows how to handle situations like this. So I am hoping that when Alfred shows up, that he helps inject that Daemon's receptive and injects this bit of diplomacy that he desperately needs, because he's fucking up the situation. Because he got the Brackens, but he alienated all these other houses at the same time by doing that. Alyssa, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, that's why I think he should just burn the Brackens. Save him all of this trouble. But also, I don't think that Sir Willem Blackwood really followed his instructions, because he said something like, there are certain things that the crown can't be seen doing. Oh, what's that? Put up Targaryen banners everywhere. Okay. Like, that's not real. That's kind of the opposite of what he said. So it kind of makes Willem look a little incompetent as well. But it just shows you how little control Daemon actually has of the situation. And you're right, how little understanding of knowledge and diplomacy that he actually has. I mean, you talk about Rhaenyra. We talked earlier about Jace. I mean, let's just let Jace do all the diplomacy, and let's actually let him do that without having him have to sneak out in the middle of the night to go do diplomacy. Like, I think Jace would be your diplomat, and I think that Rhaenyra should be the ruler, and Daemon, if they were to all just combine their forces together and just work together, like Team Black would be unstoppable, especially when you look at how dysfunctional Team Green is on the other side of things. But yeah, they need to find a way to kind of put those pieces together, because Daemon is not going to be able to do this on his own, even though he thinks he is. He's just this scene right here shows what happens when Daemon is in charge. Like, it just doesn't turn out well.
Yeah, I loved when Daemon went downstairs and the group brought out the giant F around and find out table and just showed where he was on that particular line there. Yeah, this we're seeing the consequences of our choices, the consequences of our actions through all of this. And here Daemon almost wins and ends up losing because who else doesn't want an excuse to visit atrocities upon one's ancient enemies? It seems like whenever that opportunity arises, people take that opportunity and to unfortunate effect. So this is just it's just Daemon finding out. And you're right, we should put Jace back in charge. It's also interesting to show that, like, This is why things don't get done, folks. This is why the world is a mess, because the people in charge are all idiots and they don't know what they're doing, and they won't coordinate with each other because everybody wants their own particular piece of the pie and they want to grab theirs before anybody else gets theirs. So it's just, yeah, this is why we can't have nice things right here. It's Damon's fault. We can all say that.
Yes, indeed it is. All right, so I guess I'll mention this scene real quick. I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but the handmaiden who goes off to King's Landing, I think a couple interesting things is that she goes to the city watch, and they're like, as soon as she's like mentions like who she Mizera, like, oh, Mizera, okay. So we see that there's still a lot of people, a lot of the network that's still under her control. And then when she goes into the King's Landing, and it's funny, she's like, well, everyone's trying to get out. You want to get in, which it does make me wonder if she is going to be able to get out again. But we see that who she goes to speak to, and it's the handmaiden that Aegon sexually assaulted in last season, who is now working at the brothel as a barmaid, who was serving Aegon in the previous couple episodes ago when we saw Ulf there. So I was, why is he going? I haven't read all these different theories of why she would go to her. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. One theory I heard is that, oh, maybe she's pregnant with Aegon's child. No, I don't think that. Like, I don't think that's the case. But I think it has something to do with something we saw in the trailer for next week's episode. But I don't know why her specifically. But anyway, Darren, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's just I think it's showing that while the her people may have been purged from from the Red Keep, King's Landing is where she has all of her connections. It's more amongst the people than just the staff inside of the castle, and that's where she's going to be able to have her connections and weave her magic. The fact that we're inside of this brothel, which is also where we've met Ulf, who we also was leaning out about his Targaryen past. I don't know if that's going to play forward in any of these storylines, but that seems to be one kind of connection. So, yeah, I think this is where we start putting out the feelers of how are we going to turn the Denzians, the citizens of King's Landing, to Rhaenyra's side, and maybe through all of that, we get a potential dragon rider out of it. So that's jumping forward a scene.
Well, I think I heard a theory that she went to this woman because maybe part of their plan is for her to go around and telling everyone that Aegon raped her. I think everybody probably knows that. I don't know. I don't think that would be it. I just think that it's her specifically, simply because she works for Myceria, and she was probably the contact that Myceria told her to go seek out. And that there's really nothing more to it than that. I think that's all it is, and this is how they're going to start putting their plan in motion. And yeah, I think we might see a glimpse of it in the trailer, but we'll have to wait and see next week to see how it really manifests. But yeah, I think it was just like, this is my contact, this is where she is, go find her, and I think that's all it was.
Cool. So the next scene I want to talk about is not really a scene; it's more of a moment, but it's worth talking about. I think is when we see Aemon staring at the Iron Throne, and then Helena shows up saying, "Was it worth it?
Was it worth the price?" She says.
Was it worth the price? Yeah, exactly. Which again is her being. She always says things like it's like that she can see prophecies, whatever. So she seems to be fully aware of what he did, and he didn't answer her. He just kind of looked at her like that, and I think that was the answer was yes. I don't know, but yeah, I thought that was a nice little moment. Darren, your thoughts?
No, like you said, it's a moment, and the answer is yes. I think is pretty much all that we're seeing is that's what he covets, and that's what his answer. And a question is, was it worth the price? Like, what price? I haven't paid any price. Everything's fine by me. I think ultimately that's maybe almost the actual response that he gave outside of just yes. But yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if he's gonna be smart enough to pick up on the fact that she knows knows that he did this.
No one seems to notice or care
Yeah,
about her.
yeah, I think I brought this up before. Like, at any
Mm.
point, is anyone ever going to figure out that she has these, psychic abilities, that she can see the future? And I think we all agree that no, probably not, because everybody just ignores her and doesn't paying attention to, and just kind of dismisses her. Like when she's just being weird again. But they don't realize she's making prophecy that's going to come true, because as prophecy usually is, it's spoken in riddles. So people just think it's crazy talk. But this was more direct. This was like, was it worth the price? This is like, I know what you did, kind of. So, which is dangerous, because if he figures out that she does know that, and he might find a way to keep her silent. So, watch, be careful, Elena. Um, but yeah, I actually want to see a little bit more of Helena, because they set her up to be this kind of interesting character, in that she has this prophetic ability. She's a dreamer. She has this ability to see the future, and then we hardly ever see her. So I want to. Where are they going with this? Let's see what a little bit more of this.
Yeah, her storylines or the way she's behaving is definitely different from the book. So
Oh, way different, yeah. Because
yeah,
in the book, she's just in despair, and just won't eat or sleep, or I mean, and this is not at all what is happening here.
yeah. So I would like more scenes with her too, and to see where they're going with her. All right. So then the next moment we get is with Aegon sort of, being completely in pain, and Allison looking over. And again, we see Allison actually behaving like the caring mother that she should have been doing before. But then we get the irony where he mumbles "mommy," but she had left the room by the time he said that. And so I think it's maybe indicating that that she's still not going to be there for him at the crucial moments, and it's kind of just not really all that sincere, the sorrow that she's feeling for him.
Her, oh,
No, go ahead, Alyssa.
I was going to say, her scenes with him just remind me so much of her scenes with the decrepit Viserys, and I'm sure that's intentional to draw the parallels there. And it's the same bed, because it's the king's bed, so same exact bed, same like decrepit king that Alicent is taken care of. And this time it's her son, but this time, as we spoke of earlier, um, she doesn't get to be the one in charge. While I mean, she was basically, for all intents and purposes, was the queen when she was in charge, when Viserys was sick like this. But now that is Aegon, she absolutely has no power at all, as we talked about in an earlier scene. But I did find the parallels interesting, that like Aegon is kind of the new Viserys for her in that way.
Oh yes, that's her whole job, is just kneel by decrepit kings. Um, yeah, it's one of those moments. It does show that her sadness, and that he walks away just as he wakes up. I'm assuming that's going to be indicative of that he is awake for at least a little while, and how that comes out, I don't know. I guess the question is going to be: is he going to live long enough for her to come back and visit him, or is he going to pass away and or helped along being passed away before she has a chance to come back? Because or does he even remember? Sometimes in traumas you don't have a memory of the event that actually happened. So curious where that goes on, but it definitely just keeps things all nice and complicated over there on Team Green.
Yeah, I remember last week, Darren, you were like, "Oh, he's definitely dead. He's definitely dead." And I'm like, Mark and I are putting on our best poker faces.
He's not dead yet. He's feeling much better.
He's getting better.
I think he's gonna take a walk.
I'm happy. I am happy. So yeah, he's still. I'm not promising how much longer he's going to stay alive. You'll have to tune in and find out about that. I don't know, but um, yeah, he's hanging on for dear life as of now. There's a scene in the trailer with Eamon and him at the bed that I'm a little worried about where that's going. So we'll keep an eye on that next week. Yeah, he is just barely clinging to life for now.
All right, cool. So we get to the final scene when Jace finally returns and talks to Rhaenyra. I like that. I like the way the scene plays out at the start because I'm just waiting for Rhaenyra to ask, how to go with the phrase and why the fuck do you leave without permission. But she's kind of being coy about it, talking about Visenya, the original writer, Vagar, and all this. And eventually, she says, "Oh yes, it was a good job with the twins. Well done." And she's right. She's right to praise them. She's right. She did a good job. And then he's like, "How come you look very upset?" But she points out, like, she's just like his frustration of not being able to leave the castle. She's also feeling that as well. She feels like she wants to go out and fight, and is kind of pissed off that they're just all these other people are fighting and dying for her, and she's unable to do so. They just want to keep her at the castle. But then she does blurt out, "Oh, and I did not give you leave to go," and so she was kind of pissed off that he disobeyed her. But again, the mischievous teenagers, and they're going out to do diplomacy. but um it is interesting and how they're saying that, in order to use the dragon, she's like, it must be me. I must go with my dragon because we can't count on Daemon. I love how he even brought up, but what about Daemon? She's like, no. Like, Daemon's doing his own thing. We can't count on him. And out of the 3 dragons they have, that hers is the best, the fastest, and maybe could stand a chance against Vagar. And she is obviously, understandably really touchy about Jace going out, saying how that's exactly how Luke died when Vagar ambushed him and wouldn't want the same thing to happen to him. But he points out that no, that she's the queen. If she dies, everything's lost. So, and they can't count on Bella, who's the only other dragon rider. She can't do everything. And so they're like, well, we need dragons. And then Jace points out that they have dragons. They just need riders, and comes up with the idea of finding other people with Targaryen blood to become dragon riders. And it's interesting how she was saying, "Oh, but in the history books it says that you have to be pure blood or whatever." He was like, "Yeah, no, those history books were written to sort of hype up Targaryens and make them be bigger than gods," which is kind of what they were hinting at the start of the episode with the whole dragon thing. And so I think he probably has a point that would have been exaggerated, that you need to be a pure Targaryen to do it. So now they're gonna look to see if they can find dragon riders. And they mentioned the 2 dragons that they have beneath them, which is Silverwing and Vermithor, who are the dragons of King Jaehaerys and his wife Queen Alyssane, I believe. Yeah, but there's also Sea Smoke, who we've seen flying around screaming, and who is Laenor's dragon. And then there's also wild dragons. I think they said there was like 3 or 4 of them around that area.
Have they mentioned the wild dragons in the show?
Yes, they have.
They have. Okay.
Not this season, but last season when Damon was taking stock of all the dragons they had.
He was talking about the wild. He mentioned.
He mentioned the wild dragons. Yeah.
Okay.
So they didn't mention specific ones like the cannibal. That's just the book one.
Cannibal, sheep stealer.
Yeah.
But
they
are a thing that's out there on the show.
Actually, they might have named them the wild dragons, but I don't remember. I had to go back and watch that scene. But anyway, Darrin, we'll get your thoughts on this scene.
No, this was beautiful, and this was the scene that got me kind of excited for storylines to come on, because we do have that nice kind of back and forth here, the parental anger and silent treatment with the kid, and then finally reaching out, and all that kind of let's get into the talks. But it does point out the fact it's like, oh, all those frustrations you're feeling, yeah, me too, and I'm the queen. I'm supposed to do all this stuff, and I'm completely aside. So which is, in some ways a potential kind of leap forward if Jace, as he is certainly seeming to be played and shown to have a little bit of wisdom and can start to think and put things together, starting to see how wrong all of this is really from an actual experience point, because he was kind of doing the same thing too, without realizing how very similar the two of them are, which I think kind of comes together and allows that opportunity to think of what else could we do. And of course, I would imagine that he would think that you don't have to be pure Valerian blood in order to ride a dragon, because, he's a strong lad, is all that we're trying to say here.
Well, I mean, you could be half Targaryen though, because a lot of like Bela and Rhaena. So I think because Rhaenyra is his mom, so he at least has that half Targaryen. So
Sure.
I think
Well,
that's
Targaryen and Valerian, so maybe
Yeah.
that's like an extra half or quarter or whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I think it would be half and it'd be okay.
it's a cool little moment, and to me, of course, that really opens up the realm of possibilities, because like I said, I'm a kid of the 80s, so you get a ragtag group of nerds that come together in order to defeat an Aryan race. I don't know, I guess they're both kind of, it's scary. Anyway, the analogies don't always work here, but I'm excited of where the opportunity goes for, because otherwise you pretty much just have Aemond and the largest dragon hanging around the other side, and everyone else is afraid to go against and fight. Plus, there's the infighting on all of the different sides. So I'm excited that this could give a new kind of breadth of things going forward, and add some new interesting possibilities and storylines. So yeah, I really liked how this whole thing played out.
Yeah, and as I said, like I was like, well, it's about damn time. And Mark, you mentioned that scene from last season when Damon's naming all the dragons. I thought that was gonna start setting up the dragon seeds, and here we are, all the way in episode 5, and we still don't have that story arc yet, but we'll finally get to it. But as for the scene itself, I thought this was a very nice scene between mother and daughter, or I'm sorry, mother and son. Showing like even when they don't agree with each other, when they don't get along, I've noticed a really strong bond between these two characters this season. That they really do love each other. They really do support each other. They are on the same team. And I think there was another. I can't remember what the scene was, but there was another scene where they didn't agree, but then at the end they kind of come together, united as on the united front. I liked how that all, they sort of work through their problems and they come together on a common solution. Like, okay, this is what we're going to do moving forward. So I really did like that scene. I enjoy the interactions between mother and son here.
Yeah, no, I'm also really enjoying what they're doing with these two characters. And like you said, they're making Jace a much more interesting, dynamic character. In season 1, he was kind of just there, it's a plot device. But yeah, so that's we come to the end of our discussion on episode 5. So Darrin, I'd like to thank you so much for joining for this. As always, if you just want to give a shout out to what you're up to, where people can find you, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, again, mostly here's on Mondays, talking about House of the Dragon. Yeah, I don't want to stick around for the spoilers. I like having a little bit of surprises, so you guys get to dive in, do all that. I'll be here next week. The only other thing I have is I did a little talk with Rob over on Smirking Gun Reviews, talking about the first half of season 4 of The Boys, and we'll probably be doing a second half discussion either later this week or beginning of next week. I'll throw it out there, or I'll see you guys before I do it, and then I can give you an actual date. So you can look out for that over at Smirking Gun Reviews. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Thanks.
All right. Yep, and also would like to thank anyone else who joined for the spoiler-free section who now have to take off. Thank you so much for joining. And as I say, we're getting into book spoilers, so if you haven't read the books, please just don't spoil yourself.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Alyssa.
Getting in the book spoilers. So I want to talk about pacing, because this episode really was so much slower than I was expecting. I am now starting to worry about certain storylines playing out. There's two main ones I want to talk about. The first one I want to start with is the dragon seeds. So it does look like we're getting that in the next episode based on the trailer. I do think we're definitely going to see people dying. Actually, Sir Stefan Darkland, Brandon was able to come up with his first name earlier. We were talking about him and the Queen's Guard. In the book, he is one of the people who tries to ride a dragon and is killed. So I think we will see that in the next episode. I also saw a YouTube video that mentioned that one of the guys is on Rhaenyra's council, or at least one of the guys in the book who tries to ride the dragon is one of the old white dudes, not Sir Alfred, but some other dude is on her council. I don't know if he will still play out his storyline from the book and also die riding a dragon. But I think we can count on seeing that in the next episode. I feel like the only one who is likely to end the episode on a dragon is Adam, because he's there. Sea Smoke is there. We've already seen him looking at Sea Smoke. I can even picture a scenario where it could be something like people are just getting killed and Rhaenyra's like, you know what, shut this program down. This is a bad idea. This is not going to work. And then Adam goes out on his own and gets on the dragon, and maybe it's a big deal. Like Daenerys goes, no, fighting around. They make a big deal about it. And then they're like, oh yeah, this can work. Okay. But then my question revolves around Ulf and Hugh, mainly Hugh, but Ulf and Hugh, last we saw them are in King's Landing. We know for certain that Hugh cannot leave King's Landing. Ulf's likely in the same boat unless he, got out of King's Landing off screen before they closed up the gates, which I suppose is possible. I'm thinking unlikely. We're seeing Ulf at Dragonstone next week. And there's a 0% chance we will see Hugh the Hammer at Dragonstone next week. Not only is he stuck in King's Landing, but he is light years away from that storyline of riding a dragon right now. He has a daughter who's sick he's trying to take care of. He has a wife he's trying to take care of. Like, something's got to change. Like, his daughter's going to probably have to die, I assume. Maybe his wife also dies. So I think there's going to have to be big changes in his current state, in his storyline, for him to get into a place where he can then go become a dragon rider. So not only was there 0 chance it'll happen in the next episode, I am beginning to wonder if we're going to see this by the end of the season, or is it not going to be until season 3 where Ulf and Hugh come in and ride a dragon? So what do you think? Do you think that, is there a path for Hugh and Ulf to get on a dragon back by the end of the season? And when do you think we could see that? Can we see that by episode 7, episode 8? What do you think?
Well, I saw this video pointed out that there's a scene in the trailer, in the opening trailer for the whole season, like the Team Black trailer. There was a brief scene that showed Ulf, Hugh, and Adam sitting at the table at Dragonstone having dinner with Rhaenyra, Jace, and Bella. So, and I went back and watched that trailer, and I paused it, and yeah, sure enough, you can clearly see that that's Hugh and Ulf. So they are going to get there by the end of the season. Now, when is another question. I'm hoping it's episode 7, because I think if they wait till the finale to do it, I think that would be too late. I would hope they would be. But I agree that next week we might get Adam riding a dragon, but I think next week's going to be all the people dying. And I don't know if they're going to have Sir Stefan Darkling dying as he did in the book. I kind of hope that they don't, because he's another known character. It would seem pointless to get rid of him that way. But then it would emphasize how dangerous riding a dragon is. But it seems to me that they're going to try noble people first with Targaryen blood. So it seems like that's going to fail, and then they're going to fall back to bastards. And I don't remember that happening in the books, because they didn't even mention the bastards in that last scene. But as for how Ulf and Hugh get out of King's Landing, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think maybe, like, I heard a theory that maybe that, like, the riot that we keep alluding to that we saw in the trailer, like, that's going to happen. Some people are going to get out of King's Landing that way, and it's going to be Hugh and Ulf, and for some reason they're going to hear word they're looking. But as for, like, Hugh's motivation, how he gets from my daughter is sick to I want to be a dragon rider, I think that's a clear line, because in the books they said they were offering lordships and tons of money to anyone who could tame a dragon. So it seemed like that would be his desperation. And again, his sort of Walter White-esque, I need to fend for myself and make my own money and not be a beggar, that's going to push him to go want to be a dragon rider.
That actually makes sense. That could be the motivation there, that if there's a reward offered. So yeah, but I think you're right. They're starting with lords, so I think then they maybe move on to the bastards in episode 7, because I think Adam is probably going to be the first one to ride a dragon there and be like, oh, well, this is Corlys's bastard, so let's go get some bastards. Like,
Corlys isn't even Targaryen too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I got in a whole argument with with the guy in my comment section of my prediction video, and said, well, Adam can't be Corlys's bastard and then ride a dragon because he's not of Targaryen blood. And then I eventually quoted from the book where it says that Mushroom says that that he was Corlys's bastard, and then the maester who's writing the book says, here we must agree with Mushroom. Mushroom's story seems the most likely that he is Corlys's bastard, which I made the argument that I don't know if it's such a hard and fast rule that you have to be pure Targaryen as you might think it is. And Jace kind of makes that argument too. So I think Valerian's also related to Targaryens, also from Old Valyria. So I think that obviously in the book, since they did say that is the most likely explanation, that Mushroom's story was the most likely, they are basically saying that a Valerian and a non-Targaryen blood rode a dragon. So I think there's no reason to see why we couldn't have the same thing in the show.
Yeah, and I think those rules don't hold us, and that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier when Darren brought up, like, oh, you have to be a pure Targaryen or whatever, or mostly Targaryen. I was like, I don't think so, because I think Adam's gonna have like the very little Targaryen, probably like some ancient, like maybe there was some mixing between the Valerians and Targaryens before that Corlys has, but it's gonna be very little Targaryen blood and still gonna be able to ride a dragon.
Yeah, and he's gonna end up doing it. So I think it may be episode 7 that we get Hugh and Ulf. Now, I'm going to turn to my other topic, unless you have more to add to.
Well, I know. I did have another thing to say about, because I keep watching all these videos about people saying repeatedly, oh, they need to show or indicate that Laenor died in order for Adam to ride Sea Smoke. And I keep hearing everyone talks about it like it's a fact, and no one even considers maybe the show's not going to give a fuck about that, and maybe that's not a hard and fast rule. And I don't think it's even that hard or fast rule in the books, let alone the show. So I don't think they're going to give a flying rat's ass.
Yeah, I hate. This is an example of nerd rage that I where people just get really pissed off all over the stupidest little details. Similar thing in the Acolyte, and I don't have all the love for the Acolyte. I have some critiques of it, but the thing where they had the dude with the big cone head show up, and they're like, "Yeah, he said that the Sith are a myth, so how could he?" But maybe he doesn't meet the Sith. Like, come on, like. I don't know. I put that in that category. Like, just shut the fuck up and enjoy it. Like, I don't know. I can't get on board with that kind of nerd rage.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So just make up headcanon that Laenor died for real and just move on with your life. If that makes you feel better.
Yeah, but I don't think it needs to be the case. It's just maybe like.
Well, I'm talking to the people who think
Yeah,
that
sure,
come up
absolutely.
with headcanon that.
Yeah.
That means he died. Okay, sure.
Yeah, if they say that, Laenor must have died, I'll be like, okay, fine. Whatever floats your boat. Go for it. But really, they're saying there was a magical bond between writer and dragon, and that does seem to be that true, but it's not like, I don't know. It's never
does
said
it have to be dead? I mean, just move on. It's like, well, I guess he's not coming back, so I'm moving on to the next writer.
Yeah. But anyway. Anyway, what was the other thing?
So then my other topic is, I still firmly believe we've got to end the season with King's Landing, with Rhaenyra taking King's Landing. I actually saw an article was on Screen Rant, but sometimes those clickbaity Screen Rant articles are sometimes like really stupid, like where they were saying, oh, such and such a scene set up for a season 3 story, or Rhaenyra's season 3 story arc, and you have to read it because it has spoilers. And they were saying that Rhaenyra taking King's Landing, but judging by the current pace of the show, Rhaenyra taking King's Landing will happen at the end of season 3. And I'm like, what the fuck do you think's gonna happen in season 2? You're just gonna be sitting around talking? Something has to happen. Something big has to happen. You can't. I mean, it does.
What at the end of do they expect this to go for 6 seasons or something? Like,
yeah.
At the end of the season,
someone in the comments saying, "Well, I think they're going to be 5 seasons." I don't know why people keep coming up with these other numbers other than 4, but I keep seeing, reading, hearing everyone involved with the show 4, 4, 4, 4. So I don't know why people are coming up with any other number other than 4 seasons.
Well, the last time we had a spoiler talk, and someone in the chat mentioned 5 seasons, so I looked it up, and there was an article for like a week ago where the showrunner said we're aiming for 4 seasons.
Yeah, they've always been saying that,
and they're still saying that.
It's. I think that maybe they're thrown off because we're not getting the Battle of Golden in season 2. I think that is confirmed. But judging on this episode, how they're spinning their wheels, there's no way that they have time to do both the Battle of Golden and the Taking of King's Landing. So if you're going to do one or the other, I think the Taking of King's Landing makes sense. I think that they are going to probably set the groundwork for the Battle of the Golden. It has been confirmed that there's an actress to play one of the ladies from the triarchy, whatever. Who will be in season 2. So they might start laying the groundwork, but that does look like it's being pushed to after the Taking of King's Landing and will take place in season 3. But my question is, episode 8's got to really be the conquering of King's Landing. So we have 2 episodes to get there. And right now, Daemon and Rhaenyra are worlds apart, and they're not on the same team. And in the book, they are on the same team, and they go to King's Landing together. Well, they meet each other there. They don't fly there together. But they take King's Landing together. So that has to be resolved, I think. I don't think that there's going to be a situation where like Daemon thinks like, oh, I'm going to take King's Landing. Rhaenyra's welcome to join me. Like, I do not think that the show is going to do that. I think that he's going to have to come around. So do you think we can get there? We've got 2 more episodes before we get to episode 8, which would probably have to be the Taking of King's Landing.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be the case. I think that next week they're going to start just sewing, and they're going to have maybe Sir Alfred show up and talk to Daemon, try to make sense to him. And then in episode 7, they're going to actually have, Ulf and the other people actually get the dragons, because I think they if they do it at the start of episode 8, I think that would be too rushed. I hope they do it in episode 7. And also, there was another video I was watching that was showing another scene from the Team Black trailer that came out at the start of the season that apparently shows Cyrax flying towards Harrenhal, which implies that Rhaenyra does fly out to Harrenhal to talk to Daemon. So maybe that happens like towards the end of episode 7, and they come up with the plan then, and they come on the same page. So by episode 8, they take King's Landing together.
Yeah, and we see in the trailer Aemon talking about, his uncle. He said something like, "Well, I'm not worried about my uncle." And because in the book, Aemon goes to Harrenhal to take on his uncle, and then Daemon flies away to King's Landing. That's what I want to see in the book. And Brandon, you're objectively wrong. What do you think is going to happen in season 2? If not, so Brandon, tell me, what is House of the going to end by them sitting around a table doing nothing and talking? You have to have a big thing happen. What is going to be the big thing in season 2? If not the taking of King's Landing, it 100% has to happen and will happen. Otherwise, it is going to be a really boring season if it just ends with them all sitting around bickering at a table. Well, and the Battle of the Golden has not really been set up for, so that's not happening. So it has to be 100% has to be the taking of King's Landing.
And I think it makes sense because the taking of King's Landing is what this whole season's been building on, and them wanting King's Landing. And
sorry, I'm laughing at what Brandon.
Yeah, I know. Daemon tripping more and more. Yeah. No, it's going to be a good season. So they're going to they want to end it on a high point, and this is what they've been building towards in the whole thing with the Riverlands. And so I do think that they're not going to foreshadow it. I do think they're going to have this playing up Aemon and Cole going, "Oh, we're going to Harrenhal to take it over," and they show up and like, "No one's here," and then cut to all the dragons flying around King's Landing. And so that's just what I think. And also there are these leaks, again, not 100% reliable, but they seem to be mostly like somewhat accurate. There's tons of leaks saying that it's going to end with Rhaenyra taking King's Landing.
Yeah, it has to. It has to.
And I just wonder, like, how they're going to get Otto Hightower back. We still haven't seen him. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm like, what the hell's going on with the Otto Hightower?
Yeah, he's got to come back in.
Because one of the leaks was saying that Daemon chops off his head at the end of the season.
Yeah, and that's what happens in the book. I mean, it's not Daemon specifically, but his head gets off. So, yeah, I'm just like, I know it has to happen, but I'm just like having a hard time seeing the path to getting there. But I think you're right. Rhaenyra maybe going out in episode 7. I like the idea of keeping it a secret. I even like the idea of possibly, so since she's got Mysaria, she's going to have leaks, and she does find out in the book that Aemon is making this plan. So maybe in the show, she goes and has this big scene with Daemon. They reconcile, and she says, Aemon is coming here to take Harrenhal, and then they maybe they'll imply that their plan is to stay and fight Aemon, but then
Yeah.
I don't know if the show will be able to pull that off or not, like to have it be like this surprise. I think if they could pull it off, I think it would be amazing, but I don't know. They may have to talk about it on screen, but I guess we'll see.
And I think something else we'll get, and it's not going to be a huge battle thing or a huge sequence, but I think we are in the next couple episodes, 6 and 7, going to get the Winter Wolves attacking the Lannister forces, because we see some of the Lannister forces in the trailer for next week's episode, and it was hinted at that, we need the Starks to come down here and stop the Lannisters from coming in.
Yeah, so I think we'll get that at some point.
Yeah. So I think there'll be some fighting in the Riverlands, but they're going to I could see them misdirecting that and thinking, Daemon's going off to fight the Riverlands, but no, he shows up in King's Landing instead.
Yeah.
And there's also the scene where Corlys, from the trailer of Corlys saying, the original trailer for season 2, Corlys saying to Rhaenyra, we sail at your command. And we still haven't seen that yet because the ships are still being repaired.
Yeah.
But I feel like that would be like prior to the taking of King's Landing, and maybe they're misdirecting to think like he's going somewhere else. But
Yeah.
But
Okay. Yeah, that makes me feel better because this episode, um, and it really made me start worrying about like how are we going to get to where we need to get to. So, because they're running a little bit behind, but they have to because if they don't, then what the hell happens in season 2? This is a boring season. And Brandon says he wasn't trying to be funny, but I know. But it was funny because that would be funny if the whole season just ended just them chirping, which is funny to me. But because there's no way they're going to do that. They're better writers than that. This is a good show. Season 1 was really good. Season 2 has been overall pretty good, despite my frustrations of some of this wheel spinning. It's a well-written show. There's no way it's just going to be all it is David tripping. And we're setting up to move past that, I think.
Yeah, and I still it's still like I have no idea how they're gonna get Ulf and Hugh there, but it's gonna happen. So I don't know. I was thinking maybe that the whole thing with Mysteria and the fucking shit up, that maybe somehow Rhaenyra gets word to them that hey, we need Targaryen bastards, and so they send them the Dragonstone. But I don't know how exactly that.
No, I think maybe they'll just like get out, and I think Hugh will probably meet Ulf, and Ulf was like, maybe they'll find out that they're both dragon seeds or something, and Ulf will be like, "Hey, you come with me. We can make money." He's like, "Money?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know, but I do think they'll get out of the King's Landing probably by those riots and stuff that is happening. And we're getting the scene now in the trailer with Alicent and Helena being trampled by a bunch of people that I actually thought was going to happen with the
blood and cheese. Yeah, me too.
I'm like, wait, did they? I was thinking for a while that it was one of those things where they put a scene in the trailer that gets cut from the show, and I was like, oh, maybe that's what happened. But now we're going to get that scene from the original trailer of them being attacked by crowds, and so that is probably how people get out, but then how Hugh and Ulf then end up going to Dragonstone, that's another matter. So I guess we'll have to see.
And also when Hugh was I think it was Hugh that said it to his wife, oh, we should go to Tumbleton.
Yeah, just name dropping it. I mean, that's still a little ways away.
Yeah, but no, but that's where he dies, so it's kind
of yep.
But the other thing,
I was just gonna say, I wonder if they still have the same trajectory because he just seems like such a good guy in this. So
I was thinking about how they could get around to that, and they're kind of making him, and plus you're doing the whole theme of the small folk and the people. So I think instead of, because in the books he's like, I'm going to King's Landing to be king, and maybe that's how the history was right, but maybe he's thinking like, fuck the blacks, fuck the green, fuck them all. We need a kingdom for the small people, and I could see we're like a revolution or whatever, and maybe that's the direction they take him, and that could make sense. Now, that his whole thing seems to fit with how he's being portrayed in the show, though.
Yeah.
But
Brandon is asking about. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Brandon is asking about when we think Darrin is going to show up. I think season 3. I think Otto is going to come back and like, oh, I saw Darrin and it was great. He came in on the dragon and saved us. I think he'll be referenced again, but I don't think I think season 3 is when we'll actually see him. Would be my prediction.
Yeah, and the other thing is like they haven't mentioned any infighting in the Reach yet. So I think they're saving that for season 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the other thing I wanted to bring up is Corlys and his heir. I'm hoping that, or half expecting for him to pick Alan as his heir maybe next week or the week after. At least by the end of the season. because the whole thing with Renice saying, "Oh, you should hold him," I think that's definitely leading up, foreshadowing, or pushing him to realize. Especially this week, I thought about it when he said to Bella, "I name you as my heir," and she's like, "No," that he's gonna. And just the way she said it is like, your heir should be salt and sea or what, a salt and smoke or whatever, and he's gonna realize, well, that's Alan, and Renice was actually okay with him, so I should be okay with him. So I hope we get that in the next couple.
I don't know. As long as it takes Corliss to think about things, I think it'll be at least episode 7 before he does that. I don't think he'll come to that conclusion next week. I think Adam's going to ride the dragon first, and then.
Oh yeah, actually, that would make more sense if Adam started riding the dragon first, and then that would kind of push him to.
Yeah. Which I get. Are they reversing the ages? Because in the book, Adam is older, and he's technically the heir first, but then he dies, and then Alan becomes the heir.
Oh yeah, no, I'm pretty sure they've already said that Alan is older. I'm pretty sure that when the two of them were talking, he was like, "Oh, younger brother."
Yeah, because I was wondering why they reversed the ages, but I think maybe it's just so they can cut to the chase and just have him name Alan directly as heir. Instead of having name Adam as heir, then Adam dies, and then Alan becomes heir. Just like, let's just make Alan heir.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that scene again, but I'm pretty sure they already swapped the ages.
Yeah, Brandon, Adam is older in the book, but we're thinking that they've swapped their ages for the show. But
yeah, because I think in the trailer you also see Alan dressed up in like this, Valerian garb.
Yeah. So maybe Adam gets the dragon and Alan gets the inheritance. So.
Yeah, that's what I think.
It seems like, based on what they've set up for Alan, that he would not want it, that he would decline it. Or at least at first.
Yeah.
That's the way that
but
they
maybe if Adam becomes a dragon rider first, then that might, change his mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he might do it out of some sense of responsibility or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. So I'm thinking about this because about season 3 and 4, and I'm still like, some of the reason people think they're going to add more seasons because there's only 8 episodes per season, but I think 8 episodes is still plenty. Like, they don't need to add an entire more season just because there's 8 episodes per season.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I do think they need to pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah. Every episode, every season has an episode that's kind of slow paced.
Well, I think we've had 2 this far. Like episode 3 and episode 5. And episode 3 was Rhaenyra going to Alicent.
Oh yeah.
Which at the time I thought was necessary, but now I'm like, did we need that? Like, we'll pick up the pace. There's a lot. If they're moving the Battle of Golett to season 3, we've got that. And I might do another book club video at the end of the season where I just talk about how all the rest of the seasons might play out. But I probably will change what I originally thought because I didn't think we would move the Battle of the Golett back. But we've got a couple of big things coming down the pike after that. We've got the big Aemond and Daemon battle. And then we've got the Shepherd going and leading this trip.
Isn't the Aemond and Daemon battle, I think, would be like last season kind of thing. I think my original prediction is that's how season 3 would end. And maybe I could stick that Aemond and Daemon battle with season 3.
Well, yeah.
I was thinking... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not talking about season 2, obviously. I'm talking about what we need to get to. Yeah.
But I think that... season 3, I was wondering if it would end with Rhaenyra getting kicked out of King's Landing, but I think with the pacing that needs to be reserved for season 4 because they're pushing the goal back up to season 3, so that means season 3 is going to have a lot to do, and so I think, and then they would leave next to nothing left for season 4 if they had the whole. So I think the whole Shepherd and all that shit's going to be season 4 stuff.
See, I always thought it would be good symmetry if Rhaenyra takes King's Landing at the end of season 2 and loses it at the end of season 3.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see that, but I don't know. They would have to really change things around.
But I think, I was thinking now that they might push Aemond and Daemon to season 4 to keep Matt Smith on longer.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that too.
They keep those characters on the show a little bit longer, which if they did do the Shepherd at the end of season 3, they would be switching orders of events. But they're already doing that with the Gullet anyways, so they've just shown that they can switch the order of events.
And they've been switching them already between season 1 and 2.
Yeah, the whole Daemon in the Riverlands thing way behind what it was. Way behind. So they could I could see a world where they do the whole Shepherd thing at the end of season 3. Daemon is already dead at that point in the book, but maybe he's still around for that. And then Daemon's death happens. Daemon and Aemon. And I think it will be definitive of death because they did have Alice Rivers saying you're going to die here. So I don't think it's going to be any chance of. Nettles isn't even in the show, so they're not. Not running off with.
Oh, that's also what the other thing I wanted to talk about was with the Rhaena. Do you think I get implications? I think there was the leaks saying this as well that they were going to have Sheep Stealer be in the Vale. Even though Sheep Stealers totally wasn't in the Vale in the books, that Rhaena was gonna see. There was even theories because there's a picture of Rhaena like looking worried in the next trailer for the next episode. So they're thinking, she's seeing Sheep Stealer for the first time, and they're thinking that she's gonna tame her, and that's gonna give Lady Jane her dragon that she wanted.
I mean, I'd like to see it so I can get a damn protection right because I don't want to be wrong. So that was one of my big predictions. Was that Rhaena was going to ride Sheep Stealer, and I think they are going to just move. And that might be another source of nerd rage. Like Sheep Stealer's not in the Vale.
That's pretty much all.
I mean, that could also happen next episode. So we could have 2 dragons tamed next episode if Adam rides Sea Smoke and potentially Rhaena. But Rhaena won't happen till the episode after.
I'm thinking that she'll see Sheep Stealer for the first time next episode, but won't actually tame him until like the following episode or maybe episode 8.
Yeah, so that would make sense. Yeah. Well, I need to get some predictions right. So she needs to
But I think I think some things are being are going to go out of order. Like I think the second Battle of Tumbleton in the book happened before Rhaenyra got kicked out of King's Landing. I could see them switching that, pushing that back till it happens after. So because
there's not much happens with Rhaenyra between her getting kicked out of King's Landing and then her ultimate ending of getting eaten by Aegon's dragon.
But I'm sure, like, as we see this season, they can certainly have some mucking about shit for her to do in between.
Yeah. Well, I was saying, like, they could add some of the, I mean, they could add some more stuff for her. Yeah. Well,
I'm still not sure about them ending season 3 with her getting kicked out of King's Landing, but maybe.
I don't know. I'm going to wait and see. I am going to kind of watch and see if there's casting information for the Shepherd next year, because if they're promoting so and so actor who used to be on Star Trek or used to be on Lost or used to be on some other obscure show that I watch or the MCU or something is playing the Shepherd. If that comes out, then I'm like, I think they'll definitely end it that way. But if I don't see that, then I'm like, okay, maybe they're not going to do it this year.
I don't know. I could see them like setting up for it, having the Shepherd, but maybe not actually doing it until the next following season.
It just seems like good symmetry to me. She takes it season 2, loses it in season 3. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, anyway, thanks so much for everyone joining. Thanks so much, Alyssa. If you want to give a shout out to what you're up to nowadays.
Mostly this, but I do have some Star Trek videos on my channel, Alyssa Jeans Reviews. I just reviewed the entire season of Prodigy in 2 videos, so go check that out as well. And I'll see you over in Alyssa Jeans Reviews.
Yeah, and my review for the last 10 episodes of Prodigy is coming out tomorrow, so be sure to check that out. And of course, I'm continuing to do House of the Dragon every week, and Star Trek Next Generation currently in season 5, so that's coming to an end soon. I've already started recording videos for season 6. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to keep up, and we'll see you next time. Valor Daharis or something like that. I don't know.